This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome live to Chakuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, where we are with a troop of baboons feeding on grass out here in the open plains of Quarantine. What a wonderful afternoon it is. It's still quite windy. Baboons have been moving around all morning. We actually had them this morning. One big baboon chasing a male leopard off of the dam wall, which I thought was quite incredible. Now, this afternoon, what we're going to try to do is just bumble around a little bit. It's still quite wet. The conditions underfoot are still very, very wet, so there's going to be an off-road driving. We're just going to go out there and see what it is that we can find. But I'm not alone. Tristan is out with me on Djuma. We have Kim in Punda, as well as Eric in Ngala, Maurits in Tswalu, and Taylor out in Pridelands, and we do welcome you on board your live African safari. Hello everybody, welcome again. You are live with us in Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, where it is a wonderful afternoon. Well, it's 24 degrees Celsius, 76 degrees Fahrenheit. It is windy. It was raining this morning. Hello everybody, my name is Steve, joined by Paul on camera, and as always, very excited to have you with us. We'd love for you to join us on the show through interaction. We are live and would like to collect your questions and comments on #WildEarth. You can also say FC on YouTube, and if you're under the age of 18, please talk to your parents, who can send through a question to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. And don't forget, you can register on the Wild Earth website. Head over to the live safari page where you can submit your questions there. We hope you have an awesome drive, as we hope to stay nice and warm and dry. Don't forget, we have a fireside chat scheduled for this afternoon, or should I say this evening, right at the end of drive. So that's going to be very exciting. Hopefully the rain doesn't come down and allows us to have the fire, but it's on the brink currently. And these baboons are very exciting, very nice to spend time with our distant cousins. The Chakuma Baboon, very well known for their long-ranging forays on the ground, far more sort of adept on the ground than the vervet monkey. And there's always a couple of large males in attendance with this troop. And as I said this morning, we followed up on baboon alarm calls around Vuetela Dam. We went down, we found a young male leopard on the dam wall sniffing around. Baboons were shouting, and this big male baboon came charging down and actually chased the leopard away. We were both, well, I've never seen a baboon on its own chase away a leopard. I've seen groups of them be very aggressive toward leopards, but that leopard was quite skittish to the baboon and actually bolted. And Paul was like, what is this baboon doing, chasing a leopard? Isn't he scared? But it's just like when everybody's watching and you're the big dominant male, or in the case of baboons, they form an oligarchy, so a group of dominant males. So he was proving a point to all of his friends and comrades and anyone who would like to overthrow his power. He's not scared. He'll go and chase a leopard. And remember, baboon canines are far larger than that of a leopard, and they are very, very physical, and they are designed for protecting their troop against other baboons as well as predators. But we're going to send you over to Kim, who'd like to say good afternoon.
Welcome to and beyond Punda Private Game Reserve. As you can see, we do have a significantly bigger animal here. Although, as you just heard, dynamite does seem to come in small packages. Got a beautiful elephant bull who's been slowly feeding on the same bush for the last few minutes. Seems quite relaxed. We've got a lovely afternoon here. We've got some really nice cloud cover and a gentle breeze. It's a very pleasant temperature to this afternoon here, which is a really great break from the heat we've been having. So, my name is Kim, and behind the camera we have Glenn, and we are going to be with you this afternoon. I always know it's going to be a good drive when we start with an elephant. They're my absolute favorite animal, and especially the bulls. Don't know what it is about the bulls, but I just think they are so calm and composed the whole time. It's got to be something about being the biggest animal in the bush. There's no need to worry or be in a hurry about anything. So he's just slowly walking off. As I said, he was feeding on the bush for quite a while. What would have happened is it would start producing tannins to make its leaves more bitter. Let out a little bit of a fart there. So it's a natural byproduct of their digestive system. They are hindgut fermenters, so I'm sure you've seen how zebra also are very wide in stature and will fart quite often as they run away. And it's the same with elephants. They also produce quite a lot of methane gas as a byproduct there. So I don't think that was in response to my statement. So he was feeding on that bush quite a lot, and it would have started producing tannins, making the leaves a bit more bitter. So that's why he'll eventually move off. So he's just gone to the very next tree, starting to feed a little bit there. How's the view there?
I've still got him in shot.
Okay, fantastic. Just checking how you guys are seeing, because I'm a little bit more forward, so he's a bit blocked from my angle. So this elephant does seem to be moving off slowly into an area where we can't follow him. So we're going to send you over to Tristan. He'd like to greet you all this afternoon. Hopefully we will find another big animal for you just now.
Indeed, it is that time of the day to say hello to all of you. So, my name is Tristan, as most of you will know, and on camera I have Marcel this afternoon, and hopefully we're going to have a good one. We're heading back to where I left Inzutini this morning. Marcel and I actually stayed with her quite a long time this morning after drive. I think we spent an extra 30 minutes there. She started hunting an impala herd, and she got very, very close, and then the impalas sensed something was up, and they kind of just moved a little bit, and we decided rather than following her and kind of making her target for the impalas to see by the car being there, we left her in case she was going to be successful. I highly doubt, even if she would catch one, that she was going to keep it, because the two hyenas that she had following her this morning were there as well, and so even if she did grab something, they would have robbed her in a matter of seconds. But it doesn't mean that she might not still be there. Maybe she's hanging around. Maybe those hyenas caused her to go up a tree. You never know. So we're going to head back that side and just see if we can potentially find her. Also on Simambili, they're allowing us to off-road, so that also helps in the process of being able to follow a leopardess. On Juma at the moment, we got a lot more rain than they did, and so there's no off-roading on Juma at this stage, for very good reason, which we'll get into later. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Steve, who's still with his troop of baboons.
Thanks, Tristan. Well, no doubt you will have success in finding Nzintini, a leopard I still have not been acquainted with. But we watch our troop of baboons moving through the long grass. Now, essentially, the evolution of the baboon would have been from a monkey-type animal that would have lived in the forest. And as the savannas opened up from what was dense forest, would have opened up into savannas like this due to the climate, the change in rainfall. The humans moved out into the open plains, as did animals like baboons. And so walking on 4 feet, moving long distances, a lot of foraging as they move around. So baboons, as well as people and vervets, have spent a lot of time together over the many, many years out here. And so, unfortunately, due to the fact that they are very smart, there's a fair amount of conflict between between us and them. That's just due to the fact that they live an existence of hunter-gatherer in a way. They've got to gather all their food. They're not able to store it like we are. They're not able to have caches and fridges and storerooms and rubbish heaps. And so unfortunately, due to the fact that complacency with regards to the way that many people live, baboons have technically become a problem in that regard. But I think all it is just if we're aware of it and we're careful in our approach, then things can work quite well. When I lived up in the Northern Kruger in Pafuri, I worked for eco-training up there, there's a very strong philosophy between the baboons and us, and the philosophy was that any student that arrived was told very point blank and straight that the food must not be shared or given out or must always be locked away. The rubbish must be sorted carefully, and the baboons lived above our houses there, and there was no issue at all. Rosalind wants to know, how loud can baboons shout? Are you ready? Whoa! Whoa! Sorry about that. I actually was shouting earlier on my way out, and Tristan called me and said, Steve, did you hear the baboon's alarm calling? And I said, sorry, that was me. That was me. Oh! It's not a very good baboon alarm call. I hope I didn't make all of you jump. But we've heard an impala alarm call a moment ago down here towards the dam. So we allow those baboons to move through and away as they forage. Here's some impalas here just taking it very easy in the middle. We had a really good morning this morning with them. Oh, here comes the rain. Yay, rain, rain. We do love the rain. We really do. But sometimes it's nice if the rain rains when you're not working. So I was just having a look at something in the distance, but it's just a very wet tree lying on the floor. So we're just going to move slowly through these impalas. They are very relaxed. We heard just a distance. One of those, and it was like, only heard the one. We've been listening more, but we did have a male leopard down at the dam this morning. Don't know who he is. We can't go over the dam wall at the moment due to the, just because of the rain. After some rain, dam walls, you can imagine dam walls are under a fair amount of pressure from the water. So by putting a very heavy vehicle on the dam wall, it's just sensitively rather avoid it for a few days until things dry up. Dam walls are often dug out, so the sediment dug out from the bottom is then piled up and then placed along to form a bolster. And the impalas are all out here already, Paul. Let's have a look at all of them in the open plains. There we go, a little gap on the side. While we listen, see if we can hear any alarm calls from any impalas down the way. There are European bee-eaters, swifts and swallows, all flying around. There's obviously an enormous amount of insects that have emerged after the rain. You see, over there actually is quite a good example of all those swallows. Can you see them just more to the left? See all the swallows. There's probably an insect emergence over there in the form of termites. After rainfall, termite alates. The flying termites will come out. Leanne, indeed, the impala is the most populated animal in the whole of the Kruger National Park. In the 60s, they were not. But since the 60s, due to many sort of interactions and interferences, I suppose, of water and manipulation of environments to try and mimic, or, see, did you hear that? That was an impala. But I think they're all just skittish because of the wind. So, especially the Sabi Sands, the environment here has been made beautifully well for impala. There's lots of water. And there's lots of edges. The impala is what we call an ecotone specialist. Now, an ecotone is basically the transition between a dense area, or it's between two different habitat types. And here we've got lots of dense bush, and then adjacent to that we've got open vegetation, like what you see here on open quarantine. So we've got lots of that due to the many fire breaks that are in place, due to the fact that fire is a management concern in areas like this. And so there's lots of fire breaks that are 30, 40 meters wide, adjacent to roads, and then as the fire break ends, you've got the bush again. So that's perfect habitat for impala. Impala like to come out to these open areas when it's windy, when it's dark, when it's raining, and then in the daytime when it's none of that, they go into the thickets to feed. So the manipulation of the habitat in these areas has made perfect habitat for impala. Lots of water, and that's also one of the reasons why we've probably got so many predators in the form of leopards. Obviously, the habitat type that favours the impala also favours the duiker, the bushbuck and the nyala. Obviously, those other three prefer the dense vegetation versus the open patches, together with the multitudes, or the oxpeckers here, the multitudes of scrub hares and small game birds. There are plenty of the perfect size food. That oxpecker is definitely getting ahead of the group, isn't he? Oh, shame. That impala's been crying. They're running down on her face there. You can hear lots of oxpeckers. You can probably hear the wind in the microphone. This is one of those days where you're probably quite glad you're sitting at home in your warm armchair, drinking your cup of cocoa while we brave the elements for you. That's okay. Someone's got to do it, and we don't mind. Viola, it's difficult to say. We'd have to count, but you'll notice that on the left there, it's all exclusively males. That's all males there. They're sort of on the outskirts. All the boys, you see how they don't get very close to each other. And it's all like this, like, okay, I'm happy to be in your presence, but don't come too close to me. And then if we went back to the whole herd that was behind us, that's all females. So there's more females there. Let's just reverse back so you can have a look. There's more females there, and there'll be one dominant male hanging out with that herd, and then obviously all of the youngsters. There might be a couple of males in that group, but essentially one male, there's actually two of them, with the youngsters, and then obviously all of this year's and last year November's males could be in this small group here. Any males older than that would be pushed away completely. Look at all of them. You can see the little one-year-old males there with the smallish horns. They're allowed because they're not competition yet for the dominant male, so they're allowed to hang out. But as soon as they reach a second year, or the next breeding season starts, which is coming in the next couple of months, they'll be pushed out again to start a life of bachelorhood. So you can see there's plenty of them. And because the wind is quite strong right now, right out in the open, in the middle of this open area, is where you will find the herds accumulating. So either certain animals will hide down in the drainage depressions where the wind is sort of sheltered, or other side of sort of rocky outcrops, or other side of slopes where the wind is being buffered, or you'll find them out in these open areas. Because of the noise the wind makes, the noise obviously hides. See how jumpy they are. Little noises in the grass will cause the herd to jump. Sorry about my lack of break there. Will cause the herd to jump. You'll be very jumpy if absolutely everything is out to eat you. And we're going to move on down towards the dam and see if we can find out who and what was shouting a few minutes ago.
The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply. If you love to watch Wild Earth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions, join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
Welcome back, everybody, to the swarms of what looks to be mainly European or barn swallows. And what's clearly happening there, we'll go closer shortly and have an investigation. I mentioned it briefly before, but the termites are probably blooming. After rainfall, termites can actually sit and wait. The adults, the alates, the breeding kings and queens of colonies to come, can sit for almost a year under the ground waiting for the queen, the major queen of the colony, to say it's time. And they pick up on cues from the environment. They pick up on barometric pressure. And obviously when the rain falls, it's sometimes when they will release their alates. And the alates are essentially flying termites, not flying ants, flying termites in the form of termites. You also do get alates in the form of flying ants, but those, I think, are probably termites. And that is the kings and queens of colonies to come that will emerge out of the ground en masse. They have to undergo what we call a nuptial flight, where the female flies. It can only be a few centimeters, but she has to fly. Otherwise, she can't breed. I don't know how that works, but she has to spread her wings and fly. It's obviously a form of decreasing competition. If the female came out of the ground and just mated right there, she'd end up digging right down into the colony she's just emerged from and competing with the queen. So a female will emerge, fly a very short distance, sometimes even further with the wind. The male can follow her quite far, or males will pick up on the pheromone trails. They will mate, and then they will dig immediately under the ground, and then the first eggs to hatch will be the workers that start the entire process, and then the process begins. And the reason after the rainfall is the ground is much softer and easier to dig. So these birds clearly feeding on something that's emerging from the ground there. And it's not uncommon to find multiple species of birds, vultures even, baboons, monkeys, standing there on the ground and just picking them off. They're very nutrient rich. Our past ancestors lived off of termites in the breeding season. They taste like peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter. And I've even seen vultures, I've seen vervet monkeys, baboons, jackal, feeding on the termites as they emerge. Megan, termites are fascinating. They are really an enormously important sort of species or genus in the ecosystem. I know many people around the world dislike them because of their ability to decompose organic material in the form of wood that we build our houses in. But that is their process. That is their function. Their function is to decompose organic material and return it to the nutrient pool in the ground. And even now, they are being a very important food source for these birds that are coming here to feed. They'll be defecating then after they've ingested them, and that's nutrients of the termite again being deposited onto the ground. And that's lots of birds being fed. And there are plenty of termites. There are so many ants and termites in the earth. They sort of the biomass sort of comparison, they outweigh all other species and mammals in the world. Don't know how anybody figures that out. They weigh so little. But just from a sort of scientific point of view or mathematical point of view, someone has figured it out. So, as I said before, we're going to go see if we can follow up on any alarm calls down and by the dam. We're going to send you over to Tristan, who has a surprise.
It wasn't very difficult finding her this afternoon. She's sitting perched beautifully in a marula right out in the open, and so it's exactly where we had the impalas. We literally drove maybe 100 meters from where we had those impalas, and this is where we left her this morning, was very close to this tree. I suspect that once she was spotted, decided that's where she's going to go nap, out of this long grass and out of the way of all the sort of flooding, damp areas and various insects and ticks and things that are in the grass themselves. Now, talking about flooding in damp areas, Ngala and Pridelands are both struggling a little bit with those things, but they will be joining us hopefully a little bit later. They're just busy trying to sort out some things that, some technical issues, basically, that has been caused by the weather. But yeah, nice of her to sit in the open. I thought we were going to have a bit of a struggle because they've actually graded the roads today, so there was going to be no sign of tracks if she had walked where they had graded. But she's, like I say, in a tree, beautifully kind of placed. I don't know if maybe now with the wind blowing the way it is that she's getting a little bit disturbed. I was hoping that she was going to stay in there for a little bit longer, because once she's down, the view gets quite tricky. It's not easy to follow her at all around this area, unless she's wanting to stalk these impalas. But as she comes down this tree, there's going to be an impala that's going to shout at her, because you see the moment she's kind of looking over her shoulder. So down to the right of the tree is actually one single male impala that is just standing to attention. And as she kind of comes down, she's going to attract his attention pretty quickly. You can just see him sort of on the right side of the tree itself. He's just kind of standing there and doing impala things. There's a couple other groups of impalas. If she can get down without him noticing, she might be in luck, but I doubt that that's going to be the case. Now, sorry, when the wind is blowing a lot, I didn't catch the name. If you can just give it to me again. So Baz, yes, there we go. I've got it this time. Thanks, Gwen. Baz, she does look very comfortable, particularly now that she's kind of dropped a paw. She's decided that she's just going to park her bottom on that little fork, one paw down, tail down, and that's how you balance in a tree. If you're a leopard, when you're standing up, I think she knows herself that there's too many impalas around that are watching for her to kind of get out of this very easily. So maybe what you'll find is she's going to sit there for a little bit and just see if that impala starts to turn. Then maybe she can come down pretty quickly and start to then hunt these guys. The weather has kind of changed a little bit. This morning it was overcast and rainy, but there was very little wind. This afternoon is very different. It's very windy, which plays into her hands. It makes hunting a lot easier, but it'll also be quite uncomfortable up in the tree with all the wind that she has. Now, what are you doing? It's not a place to be scratching. There she goes. She's going to come down now. Big stretch first, and then I think... Look, you see how she's watching that impala? She doesn't want to be seen by him. I'm going to actually just move quickly myself before she comes down, because she won't come down just yet. I'm just going to try and give ourselves a slightly better angle of her descent, because I suspect that she's going to come down through this kind of branch. Oh, there she goes. She's watching that impala. You're going to be seen, girl, if you come down. That impala is staring at you. I suspect she's been trying to come down, but she keeps getting shots at it. You see now the impala's looked away. There we go. She's going to come down. She's going to try to do it in this wind. Beautiful, though, isn't it? The silhouette of the kind of tail in the wind and the head sticking out the other side. No, don't go down that side. Of course she would go behind the tree. The impala didn't even see her. That's amazing. Now look at how she disappears in this long grass. It's not on Nzutini. You have really not done a good job for us there. She's completely gone the wrong way. But she's stalking this impala now. You can just see her shoulders in the long grass. She's going towards it very, very quickly. So you see there, she's in the long grass, wind is blowing, and look how she disappears, gone. It's amazing, isn't it? You just see the little white tip, and so that's why they have those little white tips, is if she had a cub, the cub would be able to see mom and see where mom is going through the little grassy areas or thickets, and be able to follow. But for us, it helps us, especially when they're hunting, because she can move around without being sort of seen from the front, but at the back side of her, we can kind of pick up those little white spots of the ears or the tip of the tail. She actually has a really good opportunity here, because between her and the impala, the grass is very long. There's a kind of stand of taller grass, and so if she gets into that and she sort of leopard crawls with the noise of this wind, she's not going to be heard approaching that impala. But what she's done, which is very, very clever, is you see how instead of her coming kind of down from the tree and then walking towards the impala from a sort of downwind direction, she's going straight at it. So the wind is blowing now between the impala and her, kind of from right to left. So her scent is not carrying to that impala at all, and she can get into that long grass and be able to walk and get nice and close to where that impala is. I'm not going to move at all. You can see the impala every now and then is staring in our direction. These impalas are very clever. They know that things are happening when there's a car around. So it's pointless for us to move closer, because otherwise all we're going to do is just kind of attract attention to Insutini, which is not what we want at all. She's definitely getting a lot closer though. Suffers. So leopards kill their prey by basically grabbing on with claws and attaching as best they can. From there, they will then grab the throat or the muzzle of an animal. So they get their mouth over the nose and mouth, and they then clamp tight and try and stop it from breathing that way. Or they get it on the neck, which is the more common one, and they sink those canines into the neck and try and either sever the carotid or close the windpipe down, and then just clamp and wait for it to suffocate, essentially. It's a nasty way for things to go, but it does happen that way. Unfortunately, a lot of the time dogs get kind of lambasted for their cruelty to the animals that they kill, but actually the cats, it's a lot more traumatic for the animal, because once they get sort of clamped on, it's the slow suffocation as opposed to this quick death that happens from a dog. There's another vehicle coming now, which might just sort of, yeah, I thought so, spook that impala. Unfortunately, I can't get hold of them while we're live, but there we go. The impala's now gone. She was very close, though. You can just see her head has just popped up. Oh, well, there goes that. It's not going to be the end of her hunting this afternoon. She's going to hunt a lot more. She's going to be up and down and probably trying to figure out ways to get close to the impalas. But you see the effect that a vehicle can have. As soon as you get too close to an impala in wind like this, they're going to be very jumpy and they're going to move straight away. And it's not their fault. I mean, they've come around a corner and the impala's kind of gone, and they're not aware that there is a leopard in the grass. So anyway, but we'll talk to them on the radio quickly, and while we do that, let's send you to Tswalu, who's got something, I think, sleeping in the shade.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful sunny afternoon here at Tswalu Kalahari, and we have found the female spotted hyena. We went by the den quickly to actually try and see if she was there. By the way, guys, my name is Maurits. Behind the camera, we've got Craig. So yeah, we went to the den quickly to see if she was there, but no luck. And then actually on our way back towards the area where we left the lions, we found her ducked in underneath this blackthorn, hiding from the heat a little bit. She's not too far away from the den site, though. It's probably about 600-700 meters. I think her battery just died on the way back. It often happens when they've spent a lot of time during the evening going out to look for food and not necessarily finding it early in the evening. So then they have to walk the whole night. And by the time that they need to come back, they're quite far away from the den site, and they rather choose a tree. When it cools down, she'll most likely head back to the den, feed the cubs a little bit, and then possibly start with her nightly activities. But as you can see, quite lazy at the moment. Rather large female hyena, and well, hopefully one of these days we'll find her at the den site by itself. So the difference between a spotted and a brown hyena, first things first, the spotted hyena is much larger, about 20 kilograms larger typically than a brown hyena. Then also when you look at the brown hyena, they've got quite a lot of long body hair. Because they're a little bit smaller, they use that long hair to, when they get threatened, they erect that and they look a little bit bigger, so they let it stand up to make themselves look a little bigger. The spotted hyenas, quite a short coat, so not as furry, even though they are completely covered in fur. Then also, obviously, as you can imagine, the spots on the spotted hyena is a dead giveaway, whereas the brown hyena, they don't really have spots or anything like that. Only on their legs, they've got these little thin brown stripes. When they go out to look for food, you'll find the spotties going either by themselves or they go in a clan to hunt. You know, out here in the Kalahari, they almost obtain they definitely obtain most of their food by hunting rather than scavenging. Whereas a brown hyena, they typically scavenge, because when they go out to look for food, they always go out by themselves. So yeah, those are the major differences. You'll find the brown hyenas also more in the mountains. The spotties, they prefer more in the open area, you know, more in the savanna-like areas. But yeah, guys, I think we're going to move on. She's not going to do anything at the moment. She's quite lazy. So we're going to send you over to Tim, that's got something else that also has spots.
Welcome back to and beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. As you can see, we've had a very successful afternoon in that we found some cheetah, which was our plan going out this afternoon. Not actually the cheetah we were looking for. We went looking for that female that you saw a little bit earlier, but instead came across these two males. As you can see, they are fast asleep though. You can see they've got very full bellies. We're having a look there. In fact, the one on the right seems to be a little bit more full than the one on the left, which makes me think that whatever they caught wasn't massive. Might have caught something this morning. Just having a look on their faces to see if there's any dried blood, but I don't see anything that's standing out. So probably something small that they caught this morning. Not enough for both of them to feed. A huge amount. So maybe a small female impala or even an impala lamb or something. But they are taking a well-deserved nap in the meantime. And this is the Ligale. Yes, they are beautiful cheetah. And these two are actually quite new to the reserve. When I say new, we actually released them a year ago. But since lockdown, we've missed many months with our animals, so they're still new to me. And we released them to bring new genes into the reserve. So they are two new south males. They're quite old. One is 6.5 and one is 7.5 years old. So that brings us to quite an interesting story about the fact that these two aren't actually brothers. Now, most times when you see cheetah in coalitions, they will be brothers. There's a few cases in the wild of, nomadic males joining up with another male and forming a coalition naturally. But generally what happens when you see males that aren't related in coalitions, they are forcibly bonded in a boma area. It's a strategy that you use in game reserves. And it sounds very unnatural, but it does give cheetahs the best chance for survival. So what will happen is there's an enclosure in the actual reserve itself, and those two males, if they lose a member of their coalition, or perhaps they're born into a litter with only females, so all the other siblings are sisters, so they don't form a coalition from birth, they might then be put in the boma area with another cheetah of a similar age. And during that time, it'll be quite a bit of a conflict situation, but they'll eventually get used to each other, and they form a very, very strong bond. And after that, they bonded and they form a coalition, and when they're released into the wild, they'll then stick together. And there's a large number of advantages for cheetah if they're in a coalition like this. One is that, we always look at cheetah, they are very much fragile animals. They've got very slender limbs, very small teeth, and their claws aren't sharp. So they don't have a lot of the way in defense, and their speed is their main weapon. So if they were to get injured, it would be a huge problem for them because they wouldn't be able to run very fast, they wouldn't be able to hunt. So this is the very big advantage, is that if one gets injured, then the other one can still hunt, and they will feed quite happily alongside each other, which is amazing for them to do. I'm sure you've seen many of our videos of lions fighting over a kill, and you wouldn't actually see this happen with these two males. But we are going to quickly send you over to Tristan, who's got another cat that's actually displaying some interesting behavior.
Indeed, we are still with our hunting leopard. I don't know if she was spotted or she was smelt by this impala, because this impala let out one snort and kind of just moved 10 meters. She's still watching it as it's moving away. Every time it turns away, she kind of creeps a little bit. So the hunt is very much still on. And I think she's going to do this the whole evening. We're going to find that she's going to be up and down and moving around and literally just stalking everything that is on these open clearings. The grass has gotten so nice and long now for her that it's easy. Look at her trotting. Where are you off to? Don't go in here. Please don't go in this area. You can stay on the road. She's going to hopefully leopard crawl right past us. This cat has zero kind of worry about being close to a car. You see how she's always looking over her shoulder to make sure she's not being shouted at? It's amazing to see how they are so aware of their surrounding. Now the impala has spotted her. You might hear this impala starting to shout because it's just turned and kind of perked up completely. And you see how her body language is changing. There also is another cat around somewhere, because while she was down in the grass, there was a monkey's alarm calling. They're far away. They're not close. It sounds like somewhere, maybe Elephant Plains, Mambili Cut Line, somewhere there. Monkey's also shouting, so maybe there's another cat. There you go. There's the impala shouting at her now that she's scratching her claws. Unfortunately, though, where she's heading, if she goes deeper in here, is not going to be possible to follow her. It's a drainage line that is going to be completely flooded, and there's no way that we're going to keep up through that thicket. I'll try our very best to follow her for a bit, but it's really not going to be easy at all to follow through here. It's a pity that she came down. I was hoping she was going to stay up the tree for a little bit just so we could spend some quality time with her. Most of the sightings we've had are fairly brief, sort of late in the drives, or she's quite well hidden, or we have issues with where we are, because she goes down into these dips and the signal becomes a bit of an issue when we go down in there. But you can see the white tail. You might hear the impala shouting behind me as well. All right, I'm going to try and keep up with this leopard. We'll see where she goes. I'm not that confident we'll keep her. In the meantime, though, let's send you to Kim, who's having a much easier time of it with her spotted cats.
Thanks, Tristan. Sorry that your leopard is disappearing on you. As you can see, our cheetah are very much still stationary right under the tree. Very immobile, so very correct in saying that. What's quite sweet is you can see the one on the right by the elbow. There's quite a collection of sand that's sort of stuck onto the arm there. Almost as if there was a wet patch or something that it stuck its elbow into. You can even see a few leaves that have stuck onto there. It's quite an interesting little observation. You can see they are very much lying down and not moving. What's quite sweet also is you can see that they are touching. So you often notice that in any animal groupings that rely on each other quite heavily, there's often actual contact between them, which secures the bonds, so that enables them to work really well as a team going forward. It just keeps those bonds really strong, so that if they are in trouble, they will actually look after each other and defend each other. You'll see a similar thing happen with lions. They often lie actually physically touching any animals with their young, and also packs of wild dog. These two really do have the most beautiful coats though, so if we look at those coats carefully, you're just looking at a leopard, I'm sure you noticed how beautifully it blended in with that rosette pattern. People often wonder what the difference between leopard and cheetah are. The general structure or sort of body parts are quite different, but the main thing is the coat. You'll see that there are solid spots all over this cheetah's back, with tiny little intermittent spots in between. The only place you'll get these solid spots on a leopard is below the neck. The rest you get like a black outline, and then a similar brown color to the back of this cheetah that lines inside those rosette patterns. And that's what gives the leopard the most amazing camouflage. Cheetah is still fairly well camouflaged, but as they're two solid colors and with quite distinctive spots, it's not as effective as that rosette pattern that you see on the leopards. See that cheetah on the right is getting very irritated by quite a persistent fly. I'm actually looking at it in my binoculars. You can see it's literally trying to land right in the middle of that cheetah's ear. What's interesting to note in this particular case as well is the body language of these cheetahs. Now, why I say that is that they are both completely fast asleep. Normally cheetahs are quite alert animals, always having to look out for other predators around them. Just like that. But they're simply reacting to the engine of another vehicle turning on. But you can see they're quite confident animals. Having such confidence that they can actually lie down completely without looking up every 30 seconds or so. I think that one's moving off to the shade. I think it's actually got a wound there. That's all the soil stuck to. Yes, look. Oh no. Oh, the skin is completely actually pulled off there. That's why there's so much soil stuck on there. That's quite a bad wound. And I'm trying to think what might have actually caused that. It's very recent. You can see it still hasn't healed properly. It's not bleeding at the moment, but I can't see any scabbing over the top there. What's good to see is he is putting some weight on it. But it's an interesting wound. It's quite circular. Molly, thanks for your question. Now, there's not much they can do except trying to keep that wound clean. You'll see he will try and lick it, and even his brother will try and assist in licking it fairly often. And they will just try and keep it as clean as possible and let the body do the rest of the healing. Quite worrying to see that for a cheetah, because as we were just talking about how the fact that if they get an injury, it can be quite detrimental to a cheetah, because they do need to use their speed to run. But luckily, I think this is a flesh wound. I didn't see any bones sticking out there. It looked quite swollen. But I think what might have happened is something's ripped a bit of the skin away. I don't think it's a contact with another predator, because I'm looking around and I don't see any other wounds. So maybe what happened is during a chase, somehow managed to cut it when going down, maybe across a branch, maybe even fell onto something, scraped off the skin on its joint there. Could also be something trying to defend itself while the cheetah was trying to kill it. So I think what we'll do is we'll sit here for a little bit longer and just see what these cheetah get up to. I don't think they're going to do much today. As you can see, the one's already wounded and they find a nice little patch of shade. They're quite well fed, so they seem pretty comfortable here for now. But we'll just stick around for a little bit longer and see what they get up to.
Alright guys, so we've now left that hyena. She doesn't look like she's going to do much in the next, I want to say, 2 hours. With the sun being out and nice and warm, I don't think she's going to even go to the den site soon, even though it's not too far away. So we've decided to move on, go towards where we've left those lion tracks this morning. We couldn't find them this morning, but I'm hopeful that with it being a warm day, they are going to be quite thirsty by the time that we get into that area. It is quite far away, though. We'll show you now. If you look over there, those mountains, behind those mountains is where we left them. So that's where we need to go. So I'd say we'll probably have another half an hour's drive at least left to get into the area. So we'll see what we can find on the way, but we are going to put ourselves in that area just to make sure that we are close by for if they do start moving or if they do come to the waterhole. You know, it's always special to see the cats at the water drinking or you know, whatever. There's always opportunity for them to try and hunt or anything like that. So the afternoon is full of possibilities. We'll just have to see if they realize. So yeah, that is what we are on our way to do now. Just a beautiful area, this area which we're driving in. You know, it's not often that we get to see such an open area. If you go far west, yes, maybe, but you'll have the odd trees still. Here it's nice and open. Perfect country for cheetahs to be operating in. So yeah, maybe we bump even to them, but we'll have to see what the afternoon has to hold.
Well, unfortunately, we've lost her in this drainage line. You can see it's a proverbial forest at this stage. We saw her briefly walking in this direction, but she hasn't come out, which means that she's either gone to sleep or she's turned and gone somewhere into these thickets. Spotting her in this is really not easy at all. Between the moving leaves and the grass that is super tall, the kind of eyes being dragged all over the place, and her coat is designed to blend in with this kind of environment, so really not helping at all, which means that we're probably going to have to leave the area and just carry on. I mean, I don't really expect us to find her again, and even if we do, the ability to follow her here is very compromised. It's so thick, there's so many fallen over stumps that all we're going to do is do a disservice to Rusty and to ourselves, and we don't want to do either of those. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we look after the cars as much as possible. As much as it's nice to follow cats around, sometimes you've got to know when to quit, and you can see what's ahead of us is really not friendly at all. It just gets worse going forward. This is a little path a little two-track that used to be here, because there was an old hyena den further down here that we used to use, and so this now turns back up to another road. And so once you kind of get to this point, you really can't go any further. In winter, it's different, but in summer, now it's just too thick and too dense for us to be able to follow her, I'm afraid. Sad, but we still got a cool sighting. I mean, we had it up in the tree, which was nice. It's always good to get her for any amount of time. I was hoping it was going to be a little bit longer than what we got, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. Can't always have it the way that you want it. Probably find that we're going to turn now and we're going to find her sitting right here somewhere, looking at us as if to say, I'm waiting for you right here. Now, I think it's Pine Walker. Talking about the vegetation, if it's always this thick and lush in the Sabi Sands at this time of the year. So yes, in good rainfall years it is. In bad rainfall years, no. So a lot of people aren't used to this because it hasn't rained very well since 2014. We haven't had really good rains. We had a serious drought, which led to us, struggling a little bit in terms of the vegetation. It became quite denuded because of the amount of drought, or lack of rain, should I say, that we had. Since 2018, though, it started to slowly rain more and more. And obviously last year we had really good rains in January, and then this year, so far, we've already had our annual rainfall come through. So, yeah, it does get this lush. It's in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. This is the sort of thickness that the bush was, the grass level was. I don't know, lads, she's gone. We lost her in there. Yeah. So the thickness of the bush is like this. So, the grass gets this long. In fact, it even gets thicker than what it is right now. And then you'll go through the cycle of wet weather, and then it'll go dry again, and everything will die back. And that's just the natural order of things in the world. It's good. It's good to see it like this again. It's been 7 years since I've seen it look as lush and as green as it at the moment. And the rain is not gone. That's the crazy thing. Everything is full, the bush is thick, the grass is long, and yet we're only in January, and a large portion of rain comes in Jan and Feb. We're going to carry on. I'm going to just go quickly check Simamili Dam, see if there's any sign of some hippos. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Kim, I think is watching some clouds approaching.
So Tristan's very right to celebrate the rain. It's always important to have as much water as possible for all the animals around. As you can see, we've got some promising clouds out in the distance there. We're really hoping they come towards Phinda, but I think if I'm looking at the movement of the clouds, it does seem it's blowing away, which is very sad indeed, because many of our watering holes are very, very dry. Most of South Africa has actually been experiencing quite a bit of rain, including the Lowveld where Djuma is. Johannesburg apparently had some flash floods yesterday. And we had a storm warning, a very intense storm warning yesterday afternoon, but unfortunately it just passed Phinda, so we only got a few drops, nothing significant to fill up our watering holes. So we're still hoping that we can get some of those fantastic, beautiful thunderstorms that you can experience in South Africa, which will hopefully bring down some very heavy rain to fill up our watering holes. Because we do have a lot of drizzle rain. You can see the general sort of landscape, beautiful section on the western side of our reserve. You can see it is still very green, so we do get a fair amount of drizzly rain. We're in KwaZulu-Natal, which has got quite a high rainfall when you compare it to the rest of South Africa. But most of it is this small, light rain, which keeps everything green and luscious, but not that very hard rain which actually fills up our watering holes, which is what we need right now. So coming into January, February, we're coming into our rainy season now. Rains are a bit late, so we haven't had as much as we we're hoping for, and we're hoping that they may be just a bit late this season. Normally in February we get our very heavy rains, so we're hoping that that's still coming. You can actually see it's quite interesting, the animal behavior that's been happening around here. Miley, that's a very interesting question. I think all animals do enjoy thunderstorms in that it brings rain, and they know this. I think at the time they look a bit grumpy and will often seek shelter. It is true that, most of the time when it is raining, it's a lot more difficult to find animals, because animals are very much like humans. If you feel like it's unpleasant to be out in that weather, then they're feeling the same, and they will do exactly what you would do, which was find shelter, find some sort of comfort away from the storm. So most of them will try and stay out of the elements. You will see elephants and things moving around in the rain as if it doesn't bother them too much. I think that's more to do with the fact that they need to continually feed throughout a day to get that 200 kilograms of food that they actually need to consume. So maybe more out of necessity than anything else. They also have very thick skin, 2 inches in some places, which I suppose also helps in that regard. I'm seeing some really beautiful birds of prey just above the mountains there. Chance, yes, it is indeed. In fact, we do have quite a few giraffes that have been struck by lightning in the past. There's a whole lot of vultures that are circling there. I'm just noticing this. And we've got some woolly neck storks below them as well. So generally during a massive thunderstorm, you'll get 1 or 2 giraffes a year that we've found that have been struck by lightning. What's quite interesting is that some animals do actually avoid the carcass after that, because I think the smell of the meat just smells a bit foreign to them, because it must be cooked a little bit from being struck by lightning and have that electrocution smell go through it. So some animals are a little bit more suspicious of that. Just watching these vultures, but they don't seem to be going down. When you're looking for a carcass or something, you watch the behavior of the vultures. If you see a whole lot flying in from nowhere and they slowly head down towards the ground, it's a good indication that there's a carcass there. If they're carrying on gaining height, then they're just catching a thermal together, which I think is what they might be doing here. They seem to be gaining height rather than losing height. It could also be that there was a carcass there earlier, maybe a small carcass that they maybe all finished off, were sitting on the ground, and we only noticed them now as they finished it and decided to leave, because it's unusual for this time of the day for them to suddenly all try and catch a thermal. It's been quite hot, so it's not as if they're waiting for the heat to rise. So more likely there was some kind of carcass around there that they've since abandoned. And that's quite close to where that female cheetah was a little bit earlier. I wonder if she caught something small and they all came and flew down, spotted it from far. It wouldn't be difficult for the vultures to see something in this area. As you can see, there's very little in the way of cover. So they might have even spotted it from the sky, come down and have just finished it and are now heading off. Craig, I do agree with you. It is a beautiful sky, and it's a beautiful scene. You can see the Lebombo mountain range in the background there. This is one of my absolute favorite spots in the reserve, and I think it's got something to do with it just being so open. You've got such a amazing sense of, as far as the eye can see, just pure wilderness, which really makes you feel, away from all the worries that you have in everyday life, away from technology, away from stress. It's just you and nature, and wherever you look, there's trees and there's mountains and there's birds, and you get the most amazing, beautiful birds of prey in this area, because it's much easier for them to spot the things that they normally hunt. You can imagine lots of snake eagles because easier to spot the snakes. Lots of lizards and mice in this area. Even things like scrub hares will be around. So lots of opportunity for them to hunt. And what's really beautiful is that we also have one little patch of blue sky right above us. So I feel like we've got the one little ray of sunshine coming through these dark clouds. So what we are going to do is we're going to head out into these open areas. We're going to just check and see what we can find, and maybe even have a look for that female cheetah that we saw a little bit earlier this morning. In the meantime, we're going to send you to another ranger with a bit of an update.
Welcome back. And, well, look at what we found on top of the Termite Mound. We're on Torchwood. On top of the Termite Mound over there is the Queen of Juma. I do believe. Yes, indeed. Hello, Tandy. Hello, you beautiful. What a gorgeous, gorgeous cat. We got a call that Tandy was spotted here on Torchwood, so we've been painstakingly making our way here, trying to avoid all of the wet and groggy roads. And the beautiful thing is, having a long lens like this, is that we can be parked here on the road and we can see her. Isn't that magnificent? So very, very exciting to be able to see Tandy. Where is her little naughty boy, I wonder? It's definitely Tandy. I can't see her ears, but I know that face, that look. She never looks the happiest, but her ears don't look right. Now, many times Tandy's been mistaken for Kuchava, or Kuchava vice versa. But they do look very similar, but there is a difference between them. Yeah, that's Tandy. You can see the ears are quite scraggly. Sorry to say that she's got scraggly ears. It's just a sign of age, everybody, of ticks and wear and tear and moving through the vegetation over her 14 years or so of life. Somewhere between 13 and 15 now. I lose track. The time out here sort of blends into itself in a big bubble. Hello, pretty. AC, it's your favorite leopardess. Well, Tandy is definitely a very, very special cat. She, I think, has got the hearts of many of our viewers. If I'm not mistaken, she's probably one of the most viewed females on the show at the moment here on Juma. Kalamba is a busy cat as well, but definitely Tandy features due to the fact that she's had a few litters and dens have been found, and she's territorially been sort of dominant on our properties. It's made it easier for us to stay with her. When Kalamba eventually decides to settle down, which is going to happen soon, Kalamba, everybody, is Tandy's 3-year-old daughter. She was 3 in November, and it's time for her to have some cubs of her own. Tristan and I were discussing it on our way in from Hoedspruit the other day. She's a really big missioner, Kalamba. She's all over the place, moving and moving and moving. So hopefully she'll settle on Juma, because Tandy seems to be taking up residence here in Torchwood on sort of the eastern side. And Kuchava's been historically in this area, so it seems like the overlap is sort of, they're pushing up against each other. Kuchava is Tandy's daughter from a few years before. And so now Kalamba's fitting in. And that is the way it works, everybody. Female leopards will carve out a part of their mother's territory. Harold, she's definitely the oldest female that we see in Juma. I think in Kanyeni, who is mainly seen up on Buffelshoek, is about the same age, if I'm not mistaken. Very similar sort of age. I don't know Nkinyeni very well. She's about the same sort of age. Kuchava is Tandi's daughter, so clearly she's younger. Tlalamba is young, only three and a bit. And, but she's beautiful. She's a very, very successful leopard. And maybe today we'll be lucky. Now, imagine you were driving along here. Do you want to just zoom back a little bit there? Or have a look, everybody. Now, keep your eye on the leopard. Keep your eye on the leopard. Now, that is a termite mound. You'd be driving past, and would you see her? You'd have to be very good with your eyes. That's why we're always looking in the trees, always looking on the termite mound. You might see another vehicle on the side there. They're out and about. Also to view. And here we have her. That's what leopards do. They like to sit on top of the termite mounds to give them a good field of view. And in weather like this, they are supremely good hunters because they spend, obviously the senses of the animals they're trying to catch are impeded to a massive degree. But it does change their behavior. You'll find often you'll be sitting with a cat and the wind picks up and they immediately stand up and start hunting because it makes their movement very, very obviously disturbing. It mutes their footfalls and their movements through the grass, even though leopards are very, very stealthy. The prey that they hunt have become very good at hearing them. But when it's windy, everybody gets very jumpy because there could be something lurking in the long grass. Craig, the queen is on her castle, or should we say the queen is on her throne? She is indeed, and she's looking right at you, Paul. I think she likes you. Of course she does. Or was she looking at me? Maybe she spotted some animals in the distance that she's still trying to spot. The gentleman that was with her before said she tried to chase something, but it got away. He didn't mention what it might have been. But how splendid. And we are in an elevated place here in Torchwood, which is giving us the signal that we so desire. So that's why we now heard the area. This is Rhino Cutline, which is directly above Chitwa. Well, Cheetah Cutline actually, Cheetah Plains actually. And obviously gives us a perfect vantage point to spot the beautiful leopard who's got a perfect vantage point herself. And it sounds like Kim has got something special. Let's go see what she's found.
Thanks very much. We do indeed have something special. You can see we've got some white rhino here, which is something very wonderful about Pinda, is that we've got a really healthy population of rhino, and that's due mainly to the fact that we've got very, very low poaching. We've also got a lot of land that's very well suited to them and lots of good grazing, so they do exceptionally well here. I'm not sure of the exact number of white rhino that we have, but we do have both black and white rhino, and I know that they have done remarkably well. What's quite interesting is this one off to the right is a male, and the one that's just gone behind the bush is a female. So you might actually see that this is a male courting the female. Generally it's quite a process. He'll spend quite a few weeks following her and trying to get a little bit closer to her until she becomes comfortable enough for him to actually put his head on her back, and thereafter he'll try and mate with her. I think that's what's happening. You can actually see she's gone around the bush the other way, and he's now decided, he's wandered a bit too far from her, and he's going to go and try and see if he can find her. Well, not try and see if he can find her, just get a little bit closer to her. So I'm going to try and get a little bit closer to him. Hey. And the old girl started almost straight away. Kendra Yes, indeed we do. We have more white rhino than black rhino. Again, not entirely sure of the numbers, but certainly just based on what we can see, how often we see them, we do certainly see white rhino quite more frequently. But I think also it's due in part to the fact that they do like the more open areas. You know, they are grazers. You can see that mouth at the bottom is very flat and low to the ground, ideal for grazing. So it's far more easier to find them. I'm actually looking at this grouping now, and I'm just seeing that the size difference, they do seem about the same size. Normally fully grown male is a bit bigger, so perhaps this is quite a young male. No, I think actually now that they're standing next to each other, you can see the size difference there. You can see the female on the left, the male on the right. Slightly bigger. Absolutely stunning to see two rhino walking side by side. It's almost as if they decided to take a stroll together. Caswell, you do raise an interesting point, and the short answer is yes, they are more vulnerable to predators. But unfortunately, with poaching statistics the way they are, the greater threat to rhino is poaching, as opposed to lion or hyena, the two that will actually end up going after rhino. Now, luckily for our rhino, Pinda, with its very, very luscious green grass and green bushes, we've got quite a lot of rainfall, which means that we've got a lot of plains game that do very well here. So there's a lot of easier animals for predators to try and hunt. So they'll rather go for things like zebra or wildebeest or impala or nyala, but a huge abundance of that, as opposed to something like a rhino that can actually injure them quite badly if they were to try and hunt it. So I think in the history of Pinda, we've only had 2 rhino killed by lions, and that was more an opportunistic kill. I think one had managed to slide down in the mud and was already on its side, and the lions happened to be there. Right place, right time for the lions, wrong place, wrong time for the rhino, and they took advantage of that. And recently there was a sort of a like a sub-adult young rhino that had just been kicked away by its mother, so it wasn't fully grown, and it was killed by a pride of lion that had the males with him at the time. So again, just sort of an opportunistic kill. But apart from that, they very seldom have to defend themselves from predators here. Shame, did you see that? Poor rhino got quite a bit of a fright. You can see we've got quite a strong breeze going on here at the moment, and rhinos are a bit more nervous in the wind. So I think that's why you're seeing it hop around a little bit. I'm going to try and get us a little bit closer, so bear with me as I carry on driving here. You know, the other side for the debate about rhino horns is that they also do need that horn to defend their territory. But how we try and make sure that it doesn't impact them too much is that we ensure all our rhino are dehorned. So all the males are on the same playing field, so one male doesn't have an advantage of the other. And as I said, it's been very effective. I think we've had 2 poaching incidents in 4 years, which is a much lower statistic than you can expect in most game reserves these days. I don't want to get too close and make these rhinos nervous of us. Poor, very good question. And if you have a look at these rhino, it's difficult with them facing us. Maybe the one on the left is just showing us a bit of an angle, or the one on the right now. You can actually see that there's quite a significant sort of stub that they've got, and that is the regrowth. So you can see it doesn't come to a point, which shows that it has been dehorned, but that they actually do grow back quite quickly. Now, if you research it, it says that they grow anywhere between 4 and 8 centimeters a year. We've actually found they grow closer to 12 centimeters a year here. So we do have to dehorn them very regularly, almost every year and a half. That's our goal, is to have those same rhino dehorned every year and a half. Things like rhinos giving birth will get in the way a little bit, because if they've got a young calf, the calves are too young to receive the M99, which is the drug that causes them to sleep through the process, or at least be much less aware. It's that anesthetic. So we can't give it to very young calves, and they get very, very distressed with their mother having been darted. So we try and avoid doing rhino dehornings or any kind of rhino work when they've got a young calf. Obviously, if it's something that's going to save the rhino's life, then we will do that. I think what we'll do, there's a little bit of a watering hole just behind us, and we might go and sit there for a while and see what comes to drink. These rhinos seem to be on a bit of a mission. I think they're going to carry on walking down this path, so we'll leave them be for the meantime.
Welcome to my car. This is Wendy, and she's my favorite. She would love to have your name engraved on her so you can be with her every single time she goes on a safari here in Djuma. If you become a Wild Earth Explorer, you will have the opportunity to buy an engraved tag which we will attach to her. We will make sure to send you a digital picture to show you exactly where you are sitting on her. You will have front row seat in every single sighting.
The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari.
My name is Taylor McCurdy, and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced, and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Tortured, everybody, and welcome back to the Queen of Djuma. Now, those of you who are maybe watching us for the first time on the show for the first time, this is Thandi, and Thandi means beloved one, and she is beloved. Yes, she is. Look at her. She's a beautifully successful leopardess who's been documented for a very long time on this show. And how special it is to be able to watch almost every waking movement and cub rearing and activity that she's been able to provide over the years. She's got a character unto her own. She's been known as quite a grumpy leopard, just due to the fact that that's who she is. Sounds like Tristan might have found something else. Just turned the game drive radio off there, I do apologise. But Thandi, since I've been on the show, had Kalamba when I first arrived. She was unsuccessful last year the year before, just at the end of the year before, 2019, with a litter. And then she's had a young boy who I haven't seen yet since being back. But we've spent, and many of the guides here have spent a fair amount of time with. And he is a little character of note. So she's successfully reared many cubs and contributed to the successes of the leopards within this area. Hello, Gabby, 12 years old. You want to know how long a leopard's tail can grow? Well, Gabby, it can grow exactly the length it's supposed to grow. I don't know, probably just over a meter, I'd say. I've never actually physically myself sat down and measured a leopard's tail, but it grows perfectly proportionate to the body size. And the purpose of the leopard's tail is for balance. So cheetahs have a very long tail, longer than a leopard's. Ooh. And that is for a rudder-like activity. When they're running at top speed, the cheetah's tail is used to help them turn and twist when their prey is moving from them. But leopard's tail helps them with balance when they're in a tree, almost like a tightrope walker would do. And it also provides an enormous amount of entertainment for the cubs. The tip of the tail is black with white, and the cubs will follow it through the long grass and often find it to be their toy of choice. Tooth and claw, digging in and biting, often to the displeasure of the adult. But you'll often find a leopard's tail is actually a little bit of a life of its own. Oh, you got something in your teeth. Okay, she's going to get up in a few moments. Generally, the precursor to movement is a yawn or two. And she's been looking in this direction the whole time. So she's going to walk straight past us. LT, you want to know if leopards pass on behavior? Well, leopards are very sort of instinctive. So a lot of what they do naturally comes naturally to them. But there are definitely certain behaviors, I suppose, that can be passed on, specifically with regards to areas that they will frequent. So female leopards, for example, Thandi, she has reared most of the cubs I know of or have been informed of. She's reared them in the same locations that she was reared in. Her mother's name was Karula. Karula was a very famous female from the area. And so Thandi picked up on the same behavioral traits of using similar den sites in very similar areas to where she was born. So whether that's picking up on the behavior of the mother or just familiarity of the area is hard to tell. But the way leopards kill, the way leopards hoist, the way they do many of the things that they do, a lot of that comes naturally to them. But definitely some of it is learnt from the parent in the early stages. But they definitely do develop their own characters, their own personalities. And we've all grown to love each individual. After spending a fair amount of time with leopards, and Tristan can agree with you, I haven't encountered a leopard that's behaved or had the exact same character. They all are quite unique. They all do behave in a very specific way. But there are so many similarities that obviously are very specific to the species, and that's what's made them so successful. Solitary, very agile, very fast, very good hunters, very arboreal. All of those are sort of natural qualities that come with leopards. But then all the little nuances with regards to behavior has made them all very, very special to us. For example, many of them will use termite mounds for elevation. That's just a way of getting higher. Mikanova, you want to know how we determine age? Well, it's hard to tell if you just came across a leopard to know the age, but you can kind of work out cub versus adult. And teeth is a good way to go by. For example, Thandi's teeth are quite worn down due to age. Her ears are a little bit scraggly, and also condition can start to deteriorate a little bit with regards to the coat as they get older. But it's not that easy. If it's a male, it's easy to tell if a male is younger than older, because an older male is much bigger, much more solid in the neck and sort of shoulder region. Younger males are a lot smaller and almost feminine in a way. They don't have as much bulk. So as they get older, you can sort of tell if a male is mature or not. But to tell how old they are once they become mature is quite tricky. But the thing with these areas, the Sabi Sands, and with this show is that we've documented, many of the leopards have been documented from birth. So many of the leopards are actually known how old they are due to the fact that we knew, or the guides in the areas knew, when the females were pregnant, when they were denning, and pretty much we've documented the life of many of our cats from early on. For example, Tingana, who came into the area long time ago, all people could do, sorry about the car driving past, all people could do was estimate how old he is. No one truly knows how old he is because he came from somewhere else. So there are a lot of guesstimates out there about how old exactly he is. And that's all based on how old people thought he was when he arrived. So there's no hard and fast rule. But in general, females get up to 13 to 15 years, maybe 16 years of age. And males between sort of 11, maybe 12, 13. It's generally a good age for these individuals. But obviously you have outliers in the population that live longer. But it doesn't look like Tanya's going anywhere right now. So we'll stay with her, see what she gets up to while we join Kim, who's enjoying a waterhole full of activity.
As you can see, we have arrived at the small little pan of water, and so far no animals, but luckily, as is always the case in the bush, the birds are providing us with a lot of beautiful entertainment. So what we are looking at now is a western cattle egret, and for those of you who are familiar with this bird, you'll notice it looks a little bit more different than usual. So it's gone into its breeding plumage. Really stunning. You can actually see that little sort of orangey band down the back. Almost looks like long hairs. They're just very long, dainty feathers. And you can also see that crest on the top has also got that very sort of orangey color. So it's busy displaying its breeding plumage. Not all western cattle egrets will have this plumage this time of year, as they breed all year round. So there's quite a distinctive trend around this time of year, though. We'll breed around here now, but not all of them will have this plumage. You can see it's doing quite an interesting little walk around. It's looking for something to feed on. Time walker. Indeed, it is a funny looking bird. Quite a common one that you see out on safari, though. This one's often... Oh, look, it actually managed to catch what looks like a little bit of a grasshopper there. Interesting. I could be wrong, because it's weird to see a grasshopper along the edge, but it did look like a grasshopper to me. So, this western cattle egret will often be around rhino and buffalo. And it's because it waits for insects to get scared up as they're walking through the grass. So that's where you most commonly see them. But also along the edges of water, you'll also see them sometimes. It's giving us quite a show, this one. You can hear some ring-necked doves in the background. Got that beautiful do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh, on the far right, we have another stunning bird. Mary Glenn, if you can see it, the pin-tailed wider. It's just on the far right bank, maybe 2 meters. You got it. Okay. Oh, it's just flown off. That is a really stunning bird around this time of year. It's actually changed its plumage completely. Let me get my bird book out, and I'd like to show you what it looked like before. So the wider's got an interesting adaptation. It actually grows that long tail and changes its plumage completely. What we saw now was the male. And you can see here, we have a look. Let me get my pen out and I can show you quite nicely. So very distinctive, that red bill still there. We're going to quickly link to Djuma. They've got something quite interesting.
Right, so we've managed to find another leopard. Unfortunately, it's on Djuma, so we can't off-road. So I've been trying to go up and down, trying to find her or him. I don't know whether it's Shadulu or if it's another cat. I just saw the tip of the tail now coming through, so I'm just trying to see where she's going to pop out or he's going to pop out. I'm not 100% sure which leopard it is, but there's definitely a leopard in this bush somewhere here. So we'll try and just be patient. We spotted them quite a long way. There we go, Shadulu, she's right here. So she was a long way in and we just saw her tip of her tail, and then slowly but surely she's kind of made her way. There are quite a few impalas around, so we'll see if maybe, just maybe, she's going to stalk any of them. The closest impala is just up the road, but it's going to probably start shouting at her because she's quite out in the open. There's a warthog also behind us. Well, that was short but sweet because she's going to cross straight into Arathusa now. Unfortunately, she's going to go right past our car. Goodbye, girl. So that's it, I'm afraid. It was a short but brief sighting, so we'll let this other car go because they're able to off-road for her into Arathusa. Like I say, the rainfall yesterday was very sporadic. So Simambili, to give you an idea, they got, I think, only about 10 millimeters of rain, whereas we as Djuma got closer to 40. So it gives you an idea of why we can off-road on one side but not on the other side. All right, well, we're going to leave her. She's, like I say, disappearing further into Arathusa. Nice to get a brief glimpse of her, though. In the meantime, let's send you across to Kim.
Amazing to have something like that happen in the bush. That's often what happens. You know, you just as you get some sort of really exciting moment, it just slinks off where you can't find it anymore. But really incredible and exciting nonetheless. Just wanted to finish telling you a little bit about this pin-tailed whiter. So the very distinguishing features, any time of the year you see that very, very bright red bill. But you can see this is how the non-breeding male and female look. So normally any time of the year you'll see around that section, that's what they look like. And around this time you can see that the male changes color completely. He actually goes from this little brown, general browny color with quite a bit of black involved to just a black and white, and then of course grows that very, very long tail. And it's quite an interesting adaptation because it does hinder him. You can imagine flying around with such a long tail adds quite a lot of weight to the flight, and also makes it very, very easy for other things to be able to catch him. But the whole thought process behind it is that the males that do succeed with this long tail and survive nonetheless indicate to the female that they have very strong genes, and that's why they grow that long tail. The females are then attracted to them and will want to reproduce with them. And whenever you see this kind of adaptation, you know, any adaptation where the male looks very significantly different to the female and puts a lot of energy into that breeding plumage, you'll often find that they mate with more than one female, that they actually reproduce with more than one female. The monogamous birds, like doves, most of the birds of prey, the females and males look almost identical. So that's quite an interesting way to tell the difference. So we are still sitting at this watering hole, but even our birds have now abandoned us. All I can see is one little three-banded plover. We're going to send you over to Eric, who'd like to greet everyone this afternoon and see what he's got in store for you.
Down into the riverbed, and one of the for a lioness.
Okay, everybody, you're back with us. We're just pushing in slightly here. The vehicle was off-road and it seems like they haven't done any damage, which is good. It's here on a sandy spot today, so let's push it a little bit closer. Give you a view of our beautiful cat. It is quite handy though with a long lens that you're able to see her from a distance. But now we're on our own. It's very important whenever doing off-roading to be sort of cognizant of the area you're in. We are right up on the top of the slope here, so the sandy soils are quite similar to the roads that we're driving on. That's what we've been doing this whole day, is just sticking to the sandy patches, the gravel soils, and staying away from the low-lying areas. And it seems like Thandi is doing the same. She's trying to be as high as she possibly can. Very opportunistic, everybody. She's waiting for dinner to present itself. The thing is, though, in conditions like this, you won't find too many animals moving very far. There's a fair amount of water around. Even the vegetation is filled with moisture at the moment, so that long trek to water that animals normally go through most days, on a day like this, they'll often find a nice open area, hang out in the open where it's safe, and try and protect themselves like those impala were this afternoon when we first started. And so it's unlikely she's going to see anything moving. But the wind might bring her the smells or the sounds of a herd somewhere. But while she waits, she will conserve her energy as much as she possibly can and have a little bit of a cat nap. Slowly she's falling. You've all experienced that before, haven't you? You start falling asleep in front of the TV. Craig, you want to know how many spots do a leopard have? Well, Craig, whenever asked questions like that where the number's quite high, I always like to answer with definitely more than 10. I have absolutely no idea. They've definitely got lots of spots. Each leopard uniquely spotted. Different spots, different rosettes. But how many exactly? I'm sure someone's gone and done the math somewhere along the line, but it's definitely not an answer I have the exact answer to, or question I have the exact answer to, but definitely more than 10. When I was asked the question when I saw a flock of quailias, that were multitudes of quailias, you couldn't even see them all, there were so many. The guest asked me, Steve, how many birds are there? And my accurate answer was more than 10, because there definitely were more than 10. Some numbers are very hard to put your finger on. I mean, just her face has got more than 50, so, and that's just a guess. Safaria, do you want to know how long she will continue her reign? You're asking my opinion. Well, I hope she continues for a very long time still. But the days are numbered, I'm afraid. I don't want to put a number on it. I don't want to jinx it at all. But she's done so well in her sort of career as queen here, that hopefully she's got many, many years still under her belt. But it's very hard to say. It is a very sensitive one, because many of our viewers are completely besotted with Thandi, as am I, as all of the presenters and cameramen who work here. The wild is a wild and harsh place, everybody, and leopards that reach this age have done very, very well. To get past the age of 1 is an enormous feat in its own, and every year a leopard maintains itself is a very, very good achievement, and to be able to have produced the number of youngsters that Thandi has is a valuable contribution to the conservation and population dynamics of leopard in this area. Leopard girl, she is stunning. She's actually gorgeous. Even when she's being a little bit grumpy, she's a gorgeous cat. You can see the wind up there, can't you? Just blowing the feathered top chloris around. We spoke this morning a lot about grass. Spoke about the, was it this morning? Was it yesterday? It's hard to remember some. I think it was this morning. Those inflorescences of the grasses are elevated like that to provide the wind pollination. All grasses are pollinated by wind, and you can see how highly elevated they are there. But the elevation of those the feather tops as well aid in the beautiful camouflage for a leopard. And leopards are able to camouflage themselves in the shortest of grass. So this time of year makes it very hard for them to be seen. It does make it more difficult for them to see their prey, hence why you'll find them spending a lot of time on top of termite mounds this time of year. It's kind of the status quo when you're in the Masai Mara. We often stop the cart, climb on top of the roof, scan with our binocular vision, see things, and then head off. That's what leopards will do. They will stare off into the distance looking for movement. Very small bits of movement and shape. And you see that posture that she's in doing now. She's almost as if she's seen something. You see the interest. If she has seen something, you'll see her body language change. She will lock onto a target. Her head will go down and her body will go, she goes straight down that termite mound in the direction of whatever it is she's seen. But as soon as she goes down the termite mound, it's very easy for her to lose whatever it is she saw before. Because that's camouflage as she is. The prey animals that Thandi is very fond of, Deka, are very good at doing it themselves. Impala try hang out in groups to alleviate the predation pressure. Not as camouflage, but very vigilant. Thandi's definitely a favoured hunter of Deka and Steenbok, both of which will occur in this area. A little bit more of a Steenbok sort of area where we are, but more open up on the top of the elevation here. Just gonna guide somebody in. I was using some hand signals going back a few generations before radio was a thing. Everybody, we are live and interactive. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. Why don't you send through a one-word tweet? How does it make you feel to see Thandi? How does she inspire you? My first time seeing her this year. I spent a lot of time with her. She's probably a leopard I've spent the most amount of time with. On Juma, on Torchwood now. Hashtag Wild Earth. How does seeing the Queen on her throne make you feel? If it's more than one word, that's okay. And if you don't want to comment at all, that's also okay. You can just talk to the computer or the screen. Remember, this is live. Everything that's happening right now is in real time. 10:06 South African time on Sunday the 17th of January. Morgan, you want to know how big a Leopard Territory is? Well, it's debatable on size, and the size of the territory depends on the resource. So here in the Sabi Sands, the Leopard Territories are probably far smaller than in places like Tswalu, where the food resource is far more spread out. Leopards and lions and hyena in those areas have to range much further to secure the resources they need for survival, so they have to range further to make a much bigger area. Here in the Sabi Sands is probably the most dense sort of area in South Africa. It definitely provides the most game viewing with regards to leopards. It's not to say that there aren't other places in the Great Kruger that have leopards in the same density, but they've been documented and time spent with them for a very, very long time. But it sounds like Eric from Ngala is out and about, and well, I think he would like to say good afternoon.
Good afternoon to everybody. Hopefully the technical issues that we had have all been sorted out, and I can join you and tell you exactly what we have in store for today. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Eric, and behind camera we have Seb. So we've said goodbye to BK and Seb has taken over. But in the last couple of minutes we just showed you a bush which might have seemed a little bit random. But as you can see, we're down here in the riverbed of the Timbavati, and I actually just picked a branch of the bush so I can show you exactly what it looks like and the reason why I showed you. So the first thing that stands out are these very, very long thorns. Not only that, but they've got thorns on either side. So see over here, we've got one thorn pointing up and then one thorn pointing forward, which is very, very distinctive of this tree species. It's called a buffalo thorn. And you can imagine if we can, now that I've stopped, I can't see one to show you, but essentially what happens is this buffalo thorn grows at the edge of the riverbank, and the branches touch the sand. So it creates almost like a very big impenetrable wall. And with all of these thorns and these bushes right up next to one another, it provides a very safe place if you're able to squeeze yourself into it and give birth, for example. So this is why we're here, and this is exactly why this lioness has chosen this area, is because of these big buffalo thorns. And so we're pretty much in exactly the same spot that the cubs were first seen with Roan in the last couple of weeks. I think it must have been about coming up to 3 weeks ago now that she was last seen with the cubs. And so we've driven up and down the river looking for tracks. We haven't seen anything yet, but we'll be checking each and every one of these buffalo thorns for any sign of the female, and hopefully if we can figure out where she is over the next 3 or 4 days, we can spend some time working the area, and if we're incredibly lucky, we might be able to get another view of the cubs. So just if I point in that direction, so these big bushes here, they're all buffalo thorns, and just so you can have a look to see how impenetrable they are, you literally cannot see the stem or the trunk or anything that the bush grows out of. And so that lioness has chosen a very good spot, and the cubs for now should be nice and safe.
Well, we are bumbling about in the hopes that we will bump into something else. We've had a fairly successful afternoon, actually, all things considered, and given the weather conditions, to bump into 2 different leopards has been quite nice. So it's a pity that both of them were a little bit shorter in terms of the length of sighting than we would probably hope for, but, you know, given, like I say, the conditions, still nice to see both individuals and that both are healthy and looking good. So we're just going to bumble now towards Treehouse Dam. I'm going to try and see if we can find anything there. You never know, maybe there's a hippo in the water or potentially an ellie lurking around. It's amazing from yesterday and this morning where ellies were all over the place. I haven't seen a single fresh sign of an elephant this afternoon, and that will all be due to the fact that it's gotten much colder and that there's a huge amount of wind. Often when the wind kicks up like this, the elephants start to disappear into denser, thicker vegetation, of which there is a plethora at the moment. And so most of these individuals probably are in drainage lines or deep in the blocks where it's very, very thick, just getting out of the wind a little bit. It's actually quite nice being in this little corridor of thicket as well. I can feel how the wind drops when you're in there, which is always pleasant. I think Treehouse Dam will be very windy when we do get there, but you never know, maybe something is lurking in that general area. All right, we're going to make our way that way. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of gold at the end of the rainbow at Treehouse Dam.
Okay guys, so we went through a valley of some sorts and actually picked up on some of the on our way to the waterhole where we think the other lions are going to come to. We actually picked up on the tracks for the rest of the Southern Pride. They unfortunately went into that valley and doesn't seem to have come out, and there's very low signal for us in there, so we didn't really follow up on them. But came across this beautiful scene with all the gemsbok and the zebra, and there's some kudus in the back and springbok, all at the waterhole. Well, this is not the waterhole's just behind us, but also just like yesterday with the giraffe, feeding on those minerals, getting a little bit of mineral salts in their system. You know, this is the perfect time for them to also come down to the water, because it's just before it starts cooling down properly. And you're absolutely right. This is a beautiful scene. You know, it's so stunning to see the different animals together, and just the backdrop is amazing. And having the water close by, you can imagine there's always something that's going to come in. So beautiful, beautiful. Also nice to see the springbok in a larger group. We're not seeing all of them at the moment. There's the rest of the herd is slightly more to our right, but they're behind the bushes, so we're not going to go there now. But yeah, just stunning to see all of these different herbivores together. There's some impala also coming down that I see. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful area. Perfect conditions for the lions to be in, you know, because they're going to, if you can imagine how many of these opportunities can present itself when they come towards the water. It is good for the herbivores to be at the water at this time of the day, though. Just before it starts cooling down, it's still warm enough for them for the cats not to want to move too much unless they're desperately hungry. So if they can come into the water and leave again before it cools down, they take themselves out of that vulnerable position of being at the water during the cooler parts of the day when the cats are also moving. So slightly better for them to come in during the middle of the day and up until now. However, we're hoping that these lions will show themselves soon, and then we'll be able to spend some time with them as well. Beautiful just to see all these animals together. I love the springbok. There's one that's female springbok there on the right hand side. That one is heavily pregnant. But yeah, guys, we're going to stick with them for a little while, see if those lions then want to come through. For the meantime, we're going to go somewhere else, okay?
So as you can see, we have got a beautiful big herd of buffalo here that are just on the other side of that little pan system that we were at just now. You can actually see that there's an egret right on the back of the one buffalo, just as we were saying earlier, that the egrets do like to stick around buffalo and rhino. And that's exactly what this egret's doing. It's standing on the back of this buffalo, hoping that as they start to move around, some of the insects in the grass will get scared up and it can get an easier meal. It's not the same egret though, because I see it doesn't have any mud on its feet. So just another egret in the area. Now what's quite interesting is that we were just talking about how the herbivores are staying close to the water, and it's a good time to stay close to the water because the predators aren't there yet. And you can see this is exactly what the buffalo are thinking. They're all huddled up really nice and close. Just looking at the one buffalo that the egret is standing on, and it has got a whole lot of dung on its horn. I don't know if you can see that there, Glenn, but it is quite hilarious. You can see, I think it was at least 3 different droppings that egret managed to do right in the horn. Yeah. Oh, shame. That poor female. It's an interesting face mask that she's got. Carly, thanks for your question. That's actually a really interesting one. Buffalo dynamics are quite unique in that there's like a hierarchy amongst both the females and the males. So I suppose there should be at least one major dominant male and one major dominant female in terms of mating rights that will occur in this particular herd. There's also buffaloes that they call pathfinders, which are ones that lead the herd when they decide to move off. Those aren't necessarily the most dominant, but it is their role to lead the herd to the next section. So I suppose in terms of actual leaders leading the group, those would be the pathfinders. Very difficult to see in this sort of grouping because they will only assume the front of the line as they decide to move off to an area where they're going to feed. So generally when they're deciding to walk long distances, it's actually amazing. You can see hundreds of buffalo walking in, a few lines of single file and staying within that line as they move from section to section, and that's due to the pathfinders cutting that path for them. And difficult to notice the more dominant ones in this section as well. Generally, how you notice the ones that are higher up in the hierarchy is that they are further in front when they're moving off, and also as they're feeding in a line. And that's due to the fact that the better grass is in the front, and also it's safer in the front because things like lions will actually target buffalo from the back of the group. Much easier for them to isolate a buffalo and try and kill it before the rest of them actually turn and defend it. I'm sure many of you have seen videos of buffalo defending other members of the group, and there's no need for them to defend if the lions have already managed to kill one. So they'll always try and isolate one at the back of the group. And also because the back of the group are the lower in the hierarchy, which are generally the weaker ones that have lost their position in the herd. It's lovely to see now. You see on the outskirts though, you see the one right in front of us. You can see there's 2 bulls right here lying down. And then also all along the outskirts you'll actually see that the bulls are almost on the edge of this herd here, leaving the females and the young more in the middle where they are safer from any predators. So again, another nice little adaptation of the buffalo. So while these buffalo are relaxing, Steve also has another animal that's relaxing, although it's of a different family. So let's see what they're up to. And we're going to carry on heading off and see what else we find this afternoon.
Thanks, Kim. Welcome back to Tortured, everybody, with the Queen. of Torchwood, I suppose. She's been known as the Queen of Djuma for so long, but she does spend a lot of time on Torchwood and Cheetah. A lot of that might also be to do with the shifting in male dominance. Spoke about territories just before, and without me being able to give you an exact size of territory for females, what is known in the leopard community is that pretty much 3 females encompass the territory of 1 male. Generally, obviously there's a fair bit of overlap, and then you have all of your young males and females sort of floating in amongst. As it's getting later and darker, I can almost hear Tandi's belly rumbling. Stuck in bed, it is magical. Those of you who know Tandi as well as I do know that this is a very rare occurrence without her having a meal or suckling to sit in one place for more than a few minutes. One of the guides who left his guest said, give us a call when she starts moving. And all of you know that Tandi is renowned for the Tandi slip. And when she's moving, gosh, it's hard to keep up. Obviously, it's not going to be something to do today, because if she does start moving, there's going to be a lot of off-roading, so we will avoid it. So we're being very blessed on this afternoon as the ground soaks in the moisture, that we're able to view her sitting stationary on the termite mound for so long. Thank you, Tandi. Ian, yes, leopards will eat anything really. They catch whatever they can catch, and rodents would definitely form part of that diet, although not very easy to catch. They will eat mongoose, rodents, squirrels, birds of every sort and size, legavans and lizards, snakes even. I think someone mentioned that leopards have a diet of about 60 odd different prey animals, if that's not mistaken. They're very opportunistic. They feed on many, many different things. That's what enables them to be so successful. Probably even feed on termites, although I've never seen a leopard feeding on termites. All the way up to baby giraffe and female kudu. It's a very varied diet, although they do prefer to feed on medium-sized antelope, steenbok, duiker, impala, where the males primarily on big male impala. Females generally stick to the youngsters and the female impala, but although it does happen every now and again that they'll catch big adult males, which they often will lose, and I'm not sure what kill Zintini had this morning with Tristan that she lost to those hyenas. One of the lessons that they learn, taking a meal that's too big to hoist can often lead to an unsuccessful feeding session. So it's all about energy. How much does it cost to take the animal down? How much of that energy can be absorbed? Claire, it has happened. It's been recorded before. I've seen video footage, although I've never seen it personally myself in the wild, of leopards launching down onto impala that were feeding on marula fruits or on leaves underneath the tree. I'm not sure what they were feeding on, but it's not always the case. Often leopards will be in the tree or on a termite mound for the vantage point it offers, and then they'll come down and then stalk the animal. But it has been recorded them launching down. But often their sense that's given off, the smell that they give off, is a deterrent to prey animals. And I think very unlucky for an impala to wander underneath the tree that a leopard has managed to find itself in. And I think on that day, the wind was just in the right direction. Anushka, my favorite leopard is Hosana. Hosana is actually Tandy's stepbrother. There's the stepbrother, cousin. Yeah, stepbrother. They have the same mother. Karula was the mother of both Tandy and Hosana. A few years apart, of course. Tingana is the father of Hosana, and then Tingana is the father of a couple of Tandy's previous litters. So they definitely are related. Tandy and Hosana definitely interacted many, many times in the time I was here. She dominated him for quite some time until eventually he said, "No, I will not take your nonsense anymore, big sister." And he pushed back a bit, but haven't seen him in some time. He's decided to go and occupy a very lovely territory to the sort of south and west. And I'm really hoping I might bump into him again. Keep getting these pictures on Facebook, people spotting him, sending these wonderful pictures through. He's turned into a beautiful, beautiful cat. He always was beautiful, but he's just really thickening up. He's got a very big neck on him now, and well, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. He's taken over prime real estate, and he's trying to spread his genetics in that area. Many of the viewers who watch the show know that Hosana is my favourite. I was actually just chatting with the lady who is a viewer, Sue Fogel, who dropped off a little Hosana teddy bear for me a few years ago. She's been planning on coming out to South Africa this year. We've been trying to meet up again. And many of you who've been watching the show for some time have probably seen my little Hosana teddy bear. He's come on a few game drives with me, and he spent the whole of last Christmas on the bonnet of this car. And I think if you ask Tristan, he might have the same answer for you about who his favourite leopard is. It's hard to say though, because Tristan knows so many leopards. He's interacted with so many in his life, but I think we should ask him, shouldn't we? Tristan, what is your favourite leopard?
Funnily enough, he's one of, but he's not my absolute favorite of the boys, which is maybe shock and horror to some of you, and I apologize for that. Tumbo was always my favorite. So Tumbo was Tandy's previous, now, 4 litters ago now? 3 litters ago. So before Tlalamba. He was a beautiful, beautiful boy. And he and Hosana were around at a very similar time, and I used to love spending time with him. I mean, obviously, Hosana was right up there. I spent more hours with that leopard than any other leopard that I've had the pleasure of seeing. So it's hard not for him to be a favorite, coupled with the fact that he gave us so many amazing sightings. You wouldn't be able to kind of write him off as a favorite. But Tandy is my favorite of the girls. I just like that she's so feisty. Tlalamba probably fairly close second from there. It's always nice to see her too, which is pretty much who we're looking for at the moment. I honestly don't know where Tlalamba's been seen of late. So I'm just bumbling about all the areas that we kind of see her. I know it's greedy to try get a third leopard in a drive, but why not? Seems like a worthwhile endeavor. To find her. But talking of Hosana, funny enough, the other day when we were staying close to Simambili, he was seen very, very close to where we were staying, and just didn't come in, but he had been seen the week before going in, so hopefully we'll get him on Simambili at some point. He's doing really well and apparently looks really good. JP, who do I think is the most successful leopard? Are we talking males or females? If we're talking females, Karula, without a shadow of a doubt. As much as Tandy has done a great job, just no one really has done quite what Karula did in terms of a success of raising cubs. To lose only one cub in your lifespan and raise so many litters of multiple cubs to adulthood is pretty incredible. So 1 litter of cubs, should I say. So she's, without doubt, probably the most successful of the females that I've spent a lot of time with. There could be an argument for her mother being also deemed as incredibly successful because she survived until she was over 19 years old, which is very old for a leopard. Even in captivity, that's old. So to do it out in the wild with one eye makes her pretty successful too. So those would be my 2, with Thandi kind of below that. And then in the male world, probably the most successful would have been Campan. He was a male in the center part of Sabi Sands. Also lasted very long for a male leopard. I think he was just to 16 when he eventually died. So he really was quite something in terms of a male leopard. And then the other one would probably be Tingana, to be honest with you. If you think about how long Tingana's been a territorial individual, it's 10 years now that he has been territorial, which is a huge amount of time. If you think that most male leopards, or average male leopard lifespan is only 12. When you start to think about it in that regard, you realize that he has also been a very, very, very successful leopard. So those would be my kind of leopards that, like I say, that I've had experience actually seeing and spending time with. Now, talking of leopards, we're going to just quickly see if we can find any sign of this one that Steve saw this morning, but he's got a leopard of his own, and it's my favorite female, so let's send you across to him.
Tristan's favorite female. So, is Tristan's favorite leopard Thandi or Hosana? Did he say Tingana? I didn't get the answer to that. But Thandi's definitely right up there. But my favorite female leopard is Shudulu, just because she's so cool. Just love her nature. Spend a lot of time with Shudulu. Tlalamba's just naughty. She's always trying to evade being seen. She's very cool, got a lot of character. But I think I've just spent a lot of time with Shudulu as well. And I've tracked her many times on foot. But then Thandi's definitely up there. Lucky number 3. Tristan doesn't mess around when it comes to finding leopards. What was that, 3 yesterday on his first drive back, and then 1 this morning already, and then another one, Shudulu, for a brief period. Hi Robertson, you want to know my thoughts on Hukumuri? Well, he's a beast. He's a really cool leopard, and last time I heard he was in pretty poor condition. He'd been in all sorts of altercations with the tortoise pan male as well as with Milwati, but apparently he's still around doing his thing. He's a bit of a thug. He's definitely a little bit misunderstood, I think, but he's like one of those really old hardcore rugby players who just has got no consideration for his body and what injuries he might incur. He just goes in all the time. I mean, like an animal like Tingana, a male like Tingana, seems to have a lot more consideration and thought. He definitely is more conscientious of injury and on the condition of his body moving forward, and I think that will stand Tingana in good stead as his age continues. And Hukumuri is probably only half the age of Tingana, and he looks like he's been around twice as long. So I really do like Hukumuri, but he's been through the meat grinder. The last pictures I saw of him were from James a while ago, and he'd lost so much condition. Last time I saw Hukumuri, he had a very injured right front paw. And that was quite some time ago, because that was due to his interaction with Milwati on Simbambili when we had him and Hukumuri interacting over the mating rights to Shudulu. It all revolves back again to the females, doesn't it? The lengths these males would go to and the injuries they'll put themselves through. These beautiful leopards. Stuck in bed, you're right. Tswalu is a very big character. He's just got so much charisma. The amount of times you'd follow him and then you'd lose him, and then you sort of come out of the bush and be like, I'm over here, everybody, follow me this way. Even on foot, he had a lot of character. Found him in our camp a few times. He really, really did like hanging around the 2 watering holes at Juma. I think we had him every day on camera for like a year. Every single day. Maybe barring one, we had him on camera, which is it's quite something, everybody, to say that you had the same male leopard on camera every single day. Quite special. He definitely didn't make it hard. We definitely felt his absence when he disappeared because we had to work a little bit harder to find leopards, but I suppose that's the way it is. And we were definitely spoilt with his presence, spoilt with his charisma, with his character, with his behavior. And I've no doubt the people down in the south, the Singita side and Sylvan and those camps down there are having the best time with Tswalu. I'd love to see him now fully grown, fully mature, just sort of taking over, taking control of his land, of his females in the area, and just doing whatever he wants to. Sort of a free spirit that he was. So we're going to stay here with Thandi a little bit longer, Tswalu's older stepsister, and maybe she'll get up and do something a little bit more exciting.
The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
We have a baby pangolin, a baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
So we've decided to leave that riverbed without any fresh tracks or signs of that lioness that we were looking for. And I mean, it rained the whole night last night. So whatever movement happened before the rain has completely gone. And so we'll just have to try again tomorrow morning. At least we'll know that the tracks will be really nice and fresh if we do happen to see them. And for the meantime, like I said, we've left the river and we are on our way towards the largest waterhole within this area to see if we can see anything that's come down to drink. With this overcast, windy conditions, we haven't been too lucky with very many animals, and I think they've just been trying to seek shelter away from the wind and maybe trying to just escape the cold a bit. So we haven't been seeing too much this afternoon, not the most productive afternoon, but this stuff happens every now and again when it comes to game drives. But it is really nice to just get out and see this reserve. And we are actually just talking now. There's a lot of puddles within the riverbed that have got I guess it's like little indentations of tracks of elephants that have just got this nice layer of water there. And I think the water table is incredibly high. So if we get one or two more big rainstorms within our catchment area of the Timbavati, so that's within the western part of the reserve and beyond the reserve, there's an incredibly good chance that this season we'll get the Timbavati flowing. And that would be amazing to try and get that on camera. So whilst we keep driving towards this waterhole, there's some beautiful scenery I'd like you to take in.
Alrighty guys, so we left the springbok and so on there by the waterhole. Just had a look quickly to see if we can see if those lion tracks maybe come out of the block yet. I expected it not to, just because it's been nice and warm today, and so far they haven't. So we're coming down a dune now, and sometimes it's just nice to stop and enjoy the view. The texture of these mountains and the Koranenberg is just incredible. So to give you an idea, those mountains that we're looking at now are just behind that, or to the northern side of those mountains. That's where we had the tracks for the rest of the pride. So hopefully they'll come through. The waterhole is now directly in front of us, quite some distance away though still, maybe 1.5 kilometers still to drive to get to that waterhole. So there's a little bit of road that we need to continue checking to see if we can get the tracks coming over or so, but I'm pretty sure that they're still going to be inside the block, possibly heading towards the waterhole. And yeah, so you can see the road running there, and then where those little rocky outcrops are there on the right hand side of the screen, that's where the water is. You're absolutely right. It is a spectacular view. Here we're very blessed here at Tswalu to have not only the Kalahari, which makes it beautiful already, but the mountainous areas just adds so much more to the reserve. As far as scenery is concerned, also diversity of species that occur here and all of those things. So we're quite lucky to have all of these different landscapes. The dunes and the flat parts and the mountains and all of those things, all just adds up to the beauty of Tswalu. But yeah, guys, I think this must be one of the best viewpoints in the reserve. Nora, very good question. It depends on how fast the cold hits us this year. So typically speaking, it'll be green and lush like this on a good rainy year like we have this year, up until more or less middle April. Okay, so from around mid-April, that's when the temperatures will start dropping quite drastically, and then from the beginning of May, that's when we have negative degrees Celsius. So that's when you'll find the grass going into more of the grass and the trees for that matter, going into more of a resting period. So the growth points then stops doing what they're doing. They'll start growing the next season again. You'll find some of the trees, like the shepherd's trees, continuing to be nice and green, but the grass will turn a tawny brown then. So normally we have the first green growth typically at around, normally after our first good rains. So that would be anything from about mid-October this year, or last year now. But normally our proper rains start falling only in mid-December. That's the average time of the year for us to start receiving rain. So the green of Tswalu will typically be about 6 to 7 months of the year that you'll find it this nice and green. Anything from sometimes as early as September, but normally mid-October up until mid-April to, the beginning of May is when you'll start seeing the bush fade into that winter coloration. And that's just also then beautiful, because then you get to experience the different colors of the bush as well. Having the green background is awesome, but to have the brown of the background of the winter time is also just beautiful photography. But yeah, guys, we're going to move on, see if those tracks cross over, see if there's something that has come to the waterhole. It's been a while since we've been there. For the meantime, we're going to send you over to Steve with his leopard, and if we find something, we'll let you know, okay?
You're so right, Mo. It's the seasonality of these places that really, really keeps things interesting. If they stayed green and lush the entire year, I suppose it would lose a little bit of its beauty. But in saying that, the Masai Mara maintains an enormous amount of its greenery, but it's the herds that come and go, the seasonality of the migration. We've got some birds that have joined Sandy, and they're shouting. There's one just off to the right here. Can you get them, Paul? It's on the right, the magpie or long-tailed shrikes. They are community breeders, hanging out in small groups. It looks like one of the males on top and a female below. The males have got slightly longer tails than the females. They like these sort of semi-open woodlands. It's their preferred choice of habitat. A lovely little acacia there. They're not too concerned with the leopard perched on top of the termite mound. The seasonality also brings with it change in the insects, the flowers, the vegetation, as well as the migratory birds. So the seasonality of the savannah has definitely captured my heart over the years, and it keeps things interesting and keeps us learning. Because as we get right in touch with our grasses and our wildflowers, then they disappear again, and then you have to start all over again the next season. Sandy's not too bothered with all of that. I think my voice is lulling her to sleep. She's just having a rest before she begins a busy night. It's possible she was quite busy last night. The predators in the stormy weather can often be quite busy because it is often time to capitalize on prey. But without having seen her belly, it's very hard for me to tell you whether she has eaten. It's possible she has maybe something small and she just got the instinct to start moving again. Maybe she went for a drink, finishing her meal. Not the biggest of meals. She just thought, well, it's windy. Maybe I'll be lucky again. But her behavior is indicating that she's not as hungry as we first thought. Okay, well, again, we're going to send you over to Kim, who's just enjoying a beautiful scene.
Welcome back to and Beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. So we've decided to spend a little bit of time watching the sunset, which is going to happen quite soon, and just taking in this beautiful scenery. So I think what we'll do is we'll stay quiet and we'll just listen to the sounds of the bush for a little while and watch as the sun starts to go down on this beautiful African evening. back. I'm sorry you couldn't join us. This is really a spectacular sort of view that we're busy looking at. You know, this is one of the things that you often appreciate on a safari, is that every afternoon when the sun starts to set, you'll often find a place, hopefully with a view, and you'll sit and watch the sun go down with a drink in your hand, and with many stories of the successful drive you just had. You know, what I always enjoy at the end of a guest stay is asking them what their highlight was, and it's actually amazing the stories that come out, because you forget how many things you've seen and how many amazing experiences you've had. And it's also quite interesting to listen to what different people find was their personal favorite. You know, there's often quite an array of sort of sightings that come up. You know, you have people saying that their favorite was sitting at a watering hole and listening to the frogs and watching the birds, and someone else's favorite was the leopard climbing up a tree. And you know, sometimes you get very unexpected ones. So it's always a wonderful time to just reflect and remember how lucky you are to be out in nature and to see the things that you see. Justin, I'm not actually on the highest point. I'm on one of our sort of more higher sections. We call this place Sondelo Lookout, and it's in the western side of our reserve. But I think our highest point is probably a spot called 50-50. It's a little bit higher than this, a little bit more to my north. But we've got quite a few mountainy areas in Punda, which is one of the beautiful things about it. So you can have your pick of really beautiful sunset spots. The only problem is sometimes you get quite a gust of wind that will come in and disturb them. We've also got another one called the World's View, which is really stunning. That's much more east of us at the moment. And then another one called Bride's Bush. Sorry, I'm just now rambling on, thinking of all the beautiful spots that we've got. Sure, there's certainly some favorites that you have. So we are going to sit and appreciate this for a little bit longer, but in the meantime we're going to send you over to Mole, who's found some herbivores.
Alrighty guys, so we're back at the waterhole. Still a lot of activity here around the waterhole, but look at how cool this is. There's some zebras having a good scratch on that rubbing post. Old broken tree, by the looks of it, it's an old shepherd's tree. It could also even be an old camel thorn. But that's just the perfect distance away from the waterhole to have everyone come through for a scratch. You'll find in areas where there's rhinos as well, panda and so on. After the rhinos have been bathing in the mud, they'll also use that quite a bit. Out here we'll find things like the buffalo and the zebras. More specifically the mud wallowing animals, so the warthogs and the buffalo and those types of things. After rolling in the mud, when it dries off, or even still while it's wet, they'll go and rub themselves against one of those poles or posts and just get rid of all the nasty itches. Also get rid of maybe some of the parasites on their skin, the ticks and the fleas and those types of things. And, you know, some of those very well used ones get sanded down pretty well, and you'll find it becoming super, super smooth. Bumblebee, yes, I have seen that quite a few times, but playing, when we say playing together, they're not necessarily playing with one another. So it won't be a case of a zebra playing with a blue wildebeest. However, you'll quite often find that, let's say in this particular scene, if the zebras, or let's say the springbok, because they quite often go into a bit of a playful mood, when that starts happening, when they start jumping around and running around and playing, it gets the other animals in a good mood as well. And then you'll find maybe the young gemsbok or the oryx or those types of things also starting to play with them. Something that often does things like this is also the blue wildebeest. You know, they follow the other animals quite easily. I have, however, seen, you know, baby elephants or so playing with things like buffalo or rhino or those types of things. It's not necessarily that both of them are playing equally. Most of the time the buffalo or the other party is not really interested in whatever they're doing. However, the elephant is enjoying itself quite a bit. So yeah, I have seen that before. It doesn't happen too often, as you can imagine, but it happens often enough that you will see it if you spend enough time in the bush. Seems like these animals have noticed something to our northern side. See all of them staring in that direction. It might be something like maybe giraffe or maybe some other animals coming down, but they're paying quite a bit of attention. We'll just see if they start alarm calling, then we know, okay, maybe we're in business. But currently they're all, or most of them, are just staring in the same direction. So we're gonna maybe go and have a look and see if we can find what they're looking at. But for the meantime, we're gonna send you over to Tristan with a new predator.
Indeed, we do have a new predator. Well, not just one, actually. We have a whole bunch of them. It's the Talamati pride, and, well, at least some of the Talamati pride. I can only count 9 at the moment. They're just inside the Manyaleti, very, very close to the gate of the Sabi Sands. So I can't get much closer than what we are right now. But as far as I can see, there's 9, maybe 10. But there are some that are lying in the long grass behind those 2 on the mound itself. Everybody's just taking it easy and having a good sleep. I'm quite surprised, actually, to see them sleeping now, because it's gotten dark quite quickly. There's a bit of rain that's starting to settle in, this light, sort of soft, soaking rain, and there's a wind that is still blowing. So it's really good conditions to hunt. And across from where they are, Sydney's dam is right behind me, there's a whole bunch of animals around the dam. So I would have thought, given the fact that they are not hugely full, that maybe they would be interested in hunting in this weather, and that the sound and the smell from those impalas would be drifting straight into them, and they might decide to move in that direction. I suppose, though, given the size of the pride, an impala is not really a huge meal. I can't remember if I saw a wildebeest. I think there was a wildebeest there. I might have been mistaken. That would be more what they would be looking for. It's wildebeest, zebra, to feed this many miles, particularly because the sub-adults are getting so big now. They would need to find a fairly substantial sized animal. So, wildebeest and kudu, waterbuck, zebra would be the lower end, and the bigger end would be, large buffalo bulls, and even something like a giraffe. Those would be really big meals for them. Smaller meals are those larger antelope for us, but for them, actually doesn't go all that far, unfortunately. And when you have a lot of mouths to feed, something like a wildebeest is a one-night deal, and they pretty much finish it and move on. I don't see any sign of the dark-maned avoca. He came this way yesterday. His tracks moved this side, but I don't see him with them. Justine, so at the moment you're finding lions sleeping next to roads because the grass is very long. It's uncomfortable to be lying in long grass because, well, not only does it crawl with ticks and parasites, it also has a lot of seeds that poke you in the eye and get stuck up their nose and in their ears, and as the wind blows, the grass tickles them, and it's just not as comfortable as lying in a nice open sandy road, particularly in conditions like this. Also, remember that lions, like most predators that are in these areas, use roads as a way to walk. It's much easier for them to walk in a straight line on a nice open clear pathway than it is to walk in the bush. And so as they're traveling along, they eventually get to the point where they're tired, and so they just flop down next to the road because it's convenient. It's why it's often quite easy to find lions, because they do just flop down next to roads, unlike leopards who we've seen are a lot more kind of mobile and moving around. And funnily enough, even though the rain makes it harder to find animals in many respects because the grass gets so long, it does help us in one aspect, and is that a lot of the animals now are going to be spending more time on roads than they are going to be in the grasses. So even leopards, to a degree, will start to shift more onto the roads. It will just really help with being able to move without having to get ticks all over them and grasses and all kinds of other nonsense that the grass brings in the summer months. It's much like us, you know. If we have a path to walk, we'll walk a path rather than being in a grassy area. You know, if it's thick and dense, you try and kind of get onto the open, clear path. It's the same thing for them, and they'll then cut off when they need to hunt. Then they'll use the grass to their advantage, but otherwise it just makes more sense to be on the roads itself. Very sleepy though, all of them, aren't they? Every now and then one pops up ahead and looks and kind of stares, but for the most part they're all sleeping. Donald, there's no defined point, so there's not like we can say at 10 lions it's too big for an area, because every area is different and every area supports a different what's the word now I'm looking for, load of animals, a different carrying capacity. There we go, got there eventually. So each area carries a different carrying capacity, and therefore that will dictate how big a pride can be before it has to start splitting. It will also be dictated by the size of animal that's available for them to hunt. In an area like this, yes, we see buffalo, but it's not common, and giraffe is in and out all the time. And so, prides, when they start to get to 10, 12 animals, it starts to become quite tricky for them, particularly now in summer, when the buffalo herds aren't as constant through the area, and you find then that you start to see splits happening. There's very few times throughout the sort of history of the lions of the Sabi Sands that the prides went massively over 20, and that was just because they couldn't find enough food. So as soon as the food becomes difficult to find, then you start to see these split outs that take place. Contrary to that, and Steve will be a better person to talk about this pride, and I think he was talking about it last night. There was a pride in an area called Singita on the eastern side of the Kruger National Park, and they had the mountain pride, which at one point managed to go over 40 individuals, and they were able to do that because there was a high percentage of zebra, wildebeest, and giraffe particularly, and they were able to kill giraffe, and they even started to hunt young elephants as they tried to feed this massive amount of lions. So there's no defined number as to what causes pride numbers and splits and those kinds of things. It's generally just food availability, and seasons will also change that. We've just come off a lot of drought seasons, which normally implies that your pride numbers will go up, because as droughts are happening, prey animals are getting weaker, therefore lions are more successful, more food, stronger cubs, and so the pride numbers expand. As we now go into wet conditions like this, the prey animals are stronger, they're feeding well, and so then the pride numbers start to shrink back down as these guys start to struggle to find food. So it'll also be a seasonal thing as well. I think this one in front of us might actually get up as he's yawning a little bit, maybe go join the rest of them. Doesn't look like much activity is taking place, but this one has started to yawn a little bit. It is that time of the day, though, where they should start to wake up. We're going to, unfortunately, probably leave them shortly because we need to go and prepare for our fireside chat for the Explorers program this evening. So hopefully all of you that are part of Explorers are looking forward to that. Steve and I are going to be doing it, so we'll hopefully catch you all a little bit later, but we'll leave the lions to their sleepy selves. Like I said, there's not really anything around that's going to attract them to move anyway, so it feels like a good time to let them go and have a little bit of a nap.
Welcome back to Sandy. And awesome, Tristan found the Talamati Pride. Were they lying down, sleeping? So Gwen was trying to talk to me about something Tristan was saying about the mountain pride, but I didn't hear exactly what the question was. But I spent a lot of time with the mountain pride back in the day, a big mega pride over in the Sakita concession in the Kruger Park. And they were a force to be reckoned with. When I started there, they had 9 sub-adult males. Yes, 9 sub-adult males that just used to push the ladies around. At one point they had 16 cubs and 9 of them were males, and they all became sub-adults. By the time I left, one of them had been caught by 5 males and killed. But there were still 8 when I left. I'm not sure what befell them, where they headed to. But I remember designing identification kits for them, which had to get changed every day because the amount of scars and cuts and scratches that these guys inflicted on each other, the only way to describe it is next level. Well, Thandi, what are you looking at, my darling? Have you heard something? She's been doing a spot of grooming. So maybe it's time for her to get moving. We've had the most wonderful afternoon with her sitting here, being very regal on her throne, but now maybe she's decided it's time to go back to a kill that she had, or maybe it's time to go find her cub. Maybe it's time to catch some food. You never know, but we'll stay with her a few more moments longer and see exactly what she gets up to.
Alrighty, guys, so I know in the Lowveld we see these little oaks quite often, but out here in the Kalahari they're not the most common of animals. We don't see impalas a lot, so it is quite a special sighting when we do see them. You know, and you don't realize how you miss impalas until you don't see them anymore. So every time I do come across, even if it's just a single male like this, it's always special to see. You know, you miss those alarm calls for when they see the leopard and just all the babies and so on. We do have them out here. It's not like we don't have a lot of impala, but their population is definitely a lot lower, or their density is a lot lower than what you'd find in the Sabi Sands or, well, anywhere else in South Africa for that matter. I think it's a cold thing. You know, they don't do very well in the cold, and also they do prefer more of a tropical environment. So where it rains a little bit more, where the bush is a little thicker. As you most likely have seen, the females, they don't have horns, so they rely very much on their camouflage and hiding, and, you know, hiding their babies as well to stay alive. So they prefer thicker vegetation. Typically, you will find them coming into the open like this, but if they need to, you know, be invisible, they'll much rather be in a thick part of the bush than out in the open. So we don't have a lot of thick bush here. We have some 3-thorn thickets and blackthorn thickets. Lilamo, you're absolutely right. They are very elegant. You know, it always looks like they're on the catwalk, busy parading. So stunning individuals. I mean, they're just beautiful. And he's walking off into the sunset now, so quite special that we've been able to see him. He's moving further and further away. We are still at the waterhole, guys, so hoping to have those lions come through. Not picking up anything, and there's quite a bit of game that's dispersing from the waterhole in the direction of where we had the track, so there's a great possibility that they might have changed their mind and is moving to a different waterhole, which is also not too far away from here. So they were where we think they are. There's 2 waterholes, one north, which is where we are now, and one just south of them, so they can actually choose where to go. So we'll maybe, if there's nothing coming through in the next 5 minutes or so, go and check up on that waterhole just to quickly have a look if they didn't maybe change their mind and go that way. However, when we checked the block earlier, there was no tracks going over in that direction, but it was still a little warmer than what it is right now. So we'll just have a look and see. Maybe we get lucky and they come through. Sometimes these cats can be so easy to find. You know, they're just on the road when you come around the corner or so, but then again, they make us work occasionally for them. So yeah, hopeful that we'll see them, but you know, even if not, any day spent in the bush is a day well spent. Seeing all like this impala now and the oryx and so on. Bridget, so no, we don't have any elephants in Tswalu currently. Back in the day when this was all still wild and open to like Namibia and Botswana, you know, where the game could migrate freely, there used to be elephants that moved through here. They weren't permanently stationed in this area, just because of the fact that there's not a lot of water available during winter and early summertime. So you'll find that you would have found the elephants coming through during summer, feeding here and migrating through as the summer comes to a close or as the rainy season comes to a close, and then heading more up towards Botswana, over to the southern parts of Botswana, maybe through to the northern parts of South Africa again, like the Lowveld and so on, and then making their loop back again towards this area when summertime came. So currently, no, we don't have elephants in the reserve. Maybe in the distant future, if the reserve keeps growing and if it gets to the point where it's large enough to facilitate, you know, a small population of elephant, there might be some introduced, but currently no. And you know, it's not up to us to decide whether there's going to be elephants introduced into the reserve or not. That will be the conservation team and so on. They will be much more informed when it comes to, you know, the impact that they'll have on the reserve and all of those things. Currently, the reserve, even though it's 110,000 hectares, is still too small to facilitate the elephants and all the other general game. So what will happen is, if we do introduce them here, they'll most likely pressurize the general game, things like buffalo and giraffe and, you know, gemsbok, kudu, those types of things, and those guys will suffer a little bit because of the population of elephant being around. So yeah, beautiful area. Unfortunately, no elephants, but you know, that's not what the Kalahari is about. We are about aardvark and aardwolf and pangolin and Kalahari lions and meerkats and those types of things, cheetahs and so on. So, and I mean, the scenery is just incredible. The stars during the evening is stunning. Best stars I've seen in my life. I mean, it's the same ones you see when you're in the Lowveld, but here it just seems like it's a bit more bright. So yeah, to be honest, we don't need elephants here. There's so many other things that's beautiful. Fiona, so we've got two prides. We've got a dominant coalition and then two prides of lions, the northern and the southern pride. The southern pride has boomed actually in their population. They used to be 9 individuals, and they've since the last quarter of last year up until now, more than doubled those. So they're 19 individuals with 10 cubs coming into the pride. Some of them still very small. There's one litter that's got 4 cubs in it, and they are, well, I saw them 2 days after they opened their eyes, and that was mid-December. So they're about a month and a half old now, maybe. And then we've got the 3.5 to 4 month old cubs, which is 3, and then the 6 to 6.5 month old cubs, which is also 3 individuals in that litter. So that, and then the northern pride, they are busy. We think there's 2 females that's busy looking for den sites or have established den sites to have cubs soon. So all in all, the lion population is going to pick up quite a bit. So yeah, and then the dominant coalition that roams over both those prides are 3 big boys, 3 really large black-maned male lions. We are at that point now where we might see a third pride forming. I've seen the southern pride, some of the young females, the previous litter of cubs, which is now, well, previous litter actually. They are now about almost 3 years old, 3.5. They've started operating quite a bit by themselves. 3 of those, it's 3 females. So that might, in the foreseeable future, or in the near future, become a pride of their own, occupying a different area. And then I'm pretty sure the males that are dominant at the moment will also then roam over those, or that pride's territory, but we'll have to see how it pans out. You know, they might always just stay in the pride, in the southern pride, which they are in now. There's quite a few youngsters in the northern pride as well, which could split away, with the females starting to den now, the adult females, the older individuals. We've seen them splitting up quite a bit as well, but that could also just be because there's now 2 or 3 females at a time that's busy being by themselves, so the youngsters don't really know what to do, so they go off by themselves and they do their own thing, and maybe join up with the females a little later on when the cubs are big enough to be introduced into the pride again. So we'll have to see what happens. Lisa, we mostly see the southern pride, just because they are, well, closer to the lodge, and you know, with them having the small cubs, we mostly go out and look for them as well. It's always cute to have a pride of lions where there's cubs around, because even if the male or the adults are sleeping, the cubs, they'll maybe lie down for a little bit, but they little balls of energy, so they're not going to lie down for too much. They'll start playing and, you know, be all cute and do their own thing. So always nice to have the cubs around. So we see that we go for this. Well, I wouldn't say we go for them mostly, but we do go and look for them more often than you'd go look for this northern pride. As soon as the northern pride has got confirmed cubs, then I suppose we'll spend some time with them. Well, more time with them as well. The northern pride is typically a better group to look for when you want to see them hunting and so on. They hunt quite frequently and very well as well. So if you want to see kills happening and so on, then we go for the northern pride rather, to have a better chance of seeing that happen. However, on Wild Earth, the northern pride is a little difficult to put on screen because they're in an area where there's very, very low signal, or if there is signal at all. So difficult to find them in a spot where we can broadcast. The southern pride hangs around more in the area where we have signal. So that's also another thing why we will on this, well, you know, on the show, see them more, just because they're in the area, they operate in the area where we can show you guys. But yeah, guys, I think while we talk, let's go and have a look at the other waterhole, see if there's maybe something happening. There's not much lion activity around this waterhole currently. Well, if there were, we would have showed you. So let's go and have a look and see if we can see maybe they came through to the other waterhole. It is now time for them to start getting a little bit more active. So hopefully, we might even find them on the road or something like that. Just one last scan here by the water. Maybe they snuck up behind us. No. So yeah, let's go and have a look at the other waterhole. You'll see it's relatively close. It's not really too far away from one another. These two waterholes are actually situated rather close to each other. And it is also sort of, so this one where we are now, it's actually sort of the most southern boundary of the northern pride. We occasionally see them here, but not a lot. they actually stick a little bit more towards the north, in amongst the mountains, which is why it makes it difficult for us to put them on screen. Because when you go into the mountains, then the signal dips quite a bit. But yeah, let's see. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe they're walking on the road here somewhere or something like that. With our audio quickly, but to come back to the question, if anything, we'll most likely close some of the water holes, which is in close proximity to others, just to entice the game even more to migrate. You know, like I said, this is what they are supposed to do. Some beautiful oryx here on the left hand side. But this is what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to migrate to, you know, quite large distances to get to different areas, not only water, but also different areas to graze and to browse. Otherwise, they'll overutilize certain areas in the reserve. So back in the day, you would have no water holes that were permanent. They were seasonal, so that's why you'll have that seasonal migration with the elephants and, well, regardless, even the oryx and the springbok would migrate through the Kalahari. They wouldn't be here permanently. So yeah, I'd say about 20, 22 water holes throughout the reserve, which sounds a lot, but in an area as big as Tswalu, it's really not that much. It's actually just enough. Maybe the conservation team will make a decision on to whether the water holes are too many or not. But yeah, guys, so we're heading now south towards the other water hole to see if maybe the lions went over there. And as you can see, it's starting to become golden hour. The coloration of the bush is changing completely. I mean, it's still green, but you have that golden glow to it with the sun setting now. We're quite fortunate to have the sun setting quite a bit later out here in the Kalahari because we're so far west in South Africa. So we're about an hour later than places like Kruger or Pinda or so, which gives us some extra time during the end part of the drive for, you know, just to enjoy this beauty. Oh, Mary, that's a good question. What do I enjoy most about being a guide in Tswalu? Well, there's many things. So, first of all, the fact that it's different from everywhere else in the country. You know, this is a completely different safari experience than what you'd find in Kruger. It's much more flat, much more open. The game is not as concentrated. We rely much more on tracking the animals than just coming around the corner and maybe bumping them. So, with that being the case, the levels of excitement builds quite a bit, you know, when you spend sometimes up to 5 hours following the tracks of the lions or the cheetahs or something like that, only to find them at the end of the drive and, you know, have that feeling of success. We're quite lucky to have exceptional trackers here at Tswalu, and they really know how to do their job perfectly. But then also, you know, the fact that we've got so many different species around here that are different from what you'd find in the Lowveld. most of my career I spent in the Lowveld, so I mean the elephants and all of those things, beautiful, stunning animals, and I miss them every day. But to be able to come here and have meerkats and see aardvark on a regular basis, during summertime it's in the evening, during wintertime even during the day, aardwolf, those types of things, those are things that you don't see in the Lowveld. I mean, if you're lucky you might bump into a pangolin or into a aardvark, but it's not an often sighting. I had to wait 6 years working in the Lowveld before I saw my first pangolin. Out here we see them more regularly. The Kalahari lions are huge. I mean, those big black manes, and they're just the framework of their body is larger than the ones that you find in Kruger, so that's also spectacular. The scenery is incredible, and then, you know, this is not only at Tswalu, this is anywhere as a guide. The amazing thing is, you know, the people aspect of it, the guest aspect, meeting new people from all over the world on a daily basis with different personalities, different views, different ways of thinking, and, you know, people that are enjoying different parts of the bush. Some enjoy the scenery, some enjoy lions, some enjoy the bigger herbivores like, well, buffalo, those types of things. So yeah, that's always special. I feel very privileged to be in the position where we are in, to be able to meet so many different people. And, you know, it makes you, well, it has to make you wise, you know, meeting all of these successful people that travel internationally, and listening to their opinions and how they did their thing and how they became the people that they are today. So yeah, that's the thing that I most likely enjoy most about guiding. Obviously I love the bush. I mean, you have to love the bush to do this. And I really enjoy there's a pale chanting goshawk flying over there. Anushka, so the plan is for us to go and have a look at the meerkats actually tomorrow morning. The mornings are typically better for the meerkats, so because then you can see them waking up and coming out of the burrow, sunning themselves, and then start foraging a little bit. So the plan was to do it tomorrow morning. So yeah, sorry guys, this is just quite beautiful. Have a look at there's two African monarch butterflies. That's doing, I think they're courting one another. They might want to mate a little bit, but look at how beautiful that is. There's been an explosion of butterflies in the area. Not only the monarch butterflies, but also the brown-veined whites and then the cabbage whites. We have quite a few of them. But I just love these monarchs. They're stunning. I love those colors. There's definitely a bit of courting going on there. I think that there's the potential for someone to try and mate a little later on. And you'll see they don't really mind being out in the open like that. You know, the monarch butterflies, in the caterpillar stage, they feed on something that's called a milkweed, which has got a poisonous milky latex. And with that being the case, when they do turn into butterflies, they keep that poisonous aspect of the latex within their body. So the birds don't really go for these guys because they have a potentially dangerous effect on the birds. They can cause cardiac arrest if they eat them. So quite safe. And the coloration on their wings, you know, those bright black and white and then the orange on the wings, will then warn the birds off. Haley, good question. Yes, unfortunately, yes, because their life cycle is so short. They do mate for life, so they'll only mate with one butterfly and then lay eggs and most likely die after that. So, yes, you can actually say they do mate for life. It's not going to be a year or 2 year or 3 year relationship type of thing. It's going to be a seasonal thing, where as soon as the eggs are laid, then most likely the butterfly will die soon. So, yeah, you can actually count them as being monogamous. Guys, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a bird going crazy above us. We won't be able to, I don't think we'll be able to put it on screen because it's literally directly above us, but it's going, it's making this clapping sound and then a whistle after that. It's called an eastern clapperlark. And he's just loving life at the moment. We're going to try, but it's going to be a tough one. Are you getting him? Yeah, so I know it's a little far away and he's, well, I think he's actually, oh, there he goes. So quite a common bird around here, quite a beautiful sound. But yeah, unfortunately, he's now taken off. Let's go and have a look and see if we can pick up on the lions. They should be moving by now. Definitely. Well, if I were a lion, I would be. Definitely to the water as well. So we'll have a look. It's faint, but you can already hear the bubbling casinos, the frogs, around the waterhole. Pillay, so the butterfly migration, we mainly get the brown-veined whites migrating from us or dispersing more from us towards Johannesburg and then further to all the way towards like the Bazarutu Islands and so on. Typically around, we're seeing quite a bit of them still, but typically around the beginning of January is when you have an explosion of butterflies. Then the population is too large and you actually find them dispersing in that direction. So yeah, that migration of the brown-veined whites normally at around beginning of January, but it can sometimes, it's rain dependent, so you find that sometimes it's a little later, going all the way to sometimes even the end of February. With the brown-veined whites, we're quite lucky because we've got the shepherd's trees around, the Boscia albitranca species. The caterpillars feed specifically on those trees. So with us having quite a few of them around, they always, we have a very healthy population, or actually more an explosion of brown-veined white butterflies during the middle or the beginning of our rainy season, which is always quite spectacular. I mean, if you can imagine, just think of this quickly, coming over an open grassy field, having a male lion walking towards you, and you have thousands of these white butterflies flying up around it, looking almost like snowflakes falling around the lion. It's just incredible to see that. And then occasionally, when it's early-ish in the season, you'll find the three thorn bushes also having pure white flowers. So then you'll have all of those white flowers, the butterflies around it, and the lion more walking towards you, or the cheetah, or the whatever walking towards you, which is just spectacular to see. So quite. So alrighty guys, we're gonna quickly have a look at the waterhole here. If we do find something, we'll let you know. For the meantime, we're gonna send you somewhere else, okay?
Yeah, so we are driving around in search of anything with 4 legs or 2 legs or with feathers or with fur. We haven't been very successful this afternoon, but we won't give up. We've got another 10 minutes or so, and maybe Ngala's just waiting, just keeping everyone on their toes. So we've covered quite a lot of ground this afternoon, and in zigzagging fashion. So we've checked a number of the areas where we thought that this lioness might have moved to if she decided to leave the cubs at the den site to go off and hunt, but no tracks whatsoever. So we'll definitely have to drop down into the riverbed first thing tomorrow morning and see if there are tracks of her returning back towards the cubs. The rest of the pride, they've been around for the last couple of days, and they were last seen very, very full-bellied, and their tracks got up and then they started walking east, and it looks like they may have crossed over our boundary into the Kruger National Park. So if anyone is hanging around Orpen Camp, they might be lucky enough to see the pride of lions that we usually see on Ngala. So Daniel, in terms of the nocturnal creatures that are active, well, most of them are starting to come out. It's still quite early on. So the very shy ones like the aardvark and the pangolin and the civets, they might wait a little bit longer for it to be completely dark, although with this cloud cover and no moon and no stars, it will be very, very dark already. But they'll still wait until late into the night to get active. But the animals that are most active now, I'd say, are the two big cats and the hyenas, so lions and leopards. And the reason being, Daniel, is the conditions suit them incredibly well to go and hunt. I mentioned how the clouds are blocking all of the light from the stars and the moon, but this wind is also really great for predators because it just pushes their scent away, and it allows them to use their smell to approach an animal and go unnoticed a bit easier. And so they'll definitely take advantage of it, and they'll move around these areas looking for those types of animals that are a lot less active at this time of day. So if it were a leopard, something like a herd of impalas at this time of year, and lions would also probably go for impala, but more likely wildebeest and zebra. In fact, literally 4 days ago, we were with guests watching lions hunting in very similar conditions to this, and the pride was lucky enough to catch impala very close to our vehicle, so that was really cool to see. They were there, I think that the lioness had caught it, and within about 2 seconds the big males of the pride ran in and stole the carcass, and they finished the whole thing without a single pride member eating it. And so those 2 male lions were nice and big and fat and full, and the rest of the pride had to continue on with the evening and try and find something else to hunt. Sure, Phil, that's a very good question. Look, I think animals that are active during the nighttime are very suited for moving around at night. So it's either they've got immaculate nighttime vision or the other senses are really good. One animal that is active during the nighttime, which pops to mind when you asked me that question, was an aardvark actually, and their eyesight is notoriously bad. But they're very heavily reliant on their sense of hearing and their sense of smell. And aardvark, they don't see movement very well at all. In terms of diurnal animals, I think things like impalas also have got quite a bad eyesight. Rhinos will also have quite a bad eyesight in light like this. There's actually quite a nice pan on the right hand side of us that we'll just quickly pop our heads into and see if there's any nocturnal animals that are there drinking.
The new year has arrived, and with it comes all kinds of other new beginnings. From hyena cubs to meerkat pups, the bush is full of new life. If you want to find out more, then sign up to be an explorer and join our New Beginnings Fireside Chat. Tristan and Steve will be looking at what's new here in the wilderness as we enter 2021. Join them on the 17th of January, straight after the Sunset Safari. This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Tswalu Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Alrighty guys, so unfortunately it seems like the lion sleeps tonight. No activity at either one of the waterholes, so they might just get a little active a little later on, which is fine. You know, sometimes the bush does that to you. It is a beautiful afternoon though. I mean, this temperature is just incredible, and the sun is just now dipping behind the mountains over there. So with that being the case, we are slowly starting to head back to our base of operations. It is a beautiful, beautiful scene though, just stunning. Being out here and having the colors on the mountains change the whole time and so on, it's incredible. We're going to show you now. I'll actually slow down a little bit when we get an open view. Have a look at that. Just incredible, eh? And sometimes it's amazing how here in the Kalahari the sunset can be in the west, but the eastern horizon is much more full of colors at that point. Just amazing. But yeah, guys, unfortunately, it has now come to that point where we are going to have to say good night. It's been wonderful to have you guys all on the drive as we watch the sunset. We are excited to have you all tomorrow morning with us again at 5:30 on channel 183 on DSTV, or you can follow us on YouTube as well. And remember to send us all of your questions. It's always great to get a lot of questions from you guys, because then I know what you want to know. And we'll be able to answer them to our best of our ability. I mean, obviously, if there's one where you ask a very good question, we might have to go and read up on it before we give you the answer. But that's also great, because then we as guides continue learning. You know, it's a constant study process. But yeah, so we'll be going to the meerkats tomorrow morning. So for those of you who are meerkat enthusiasts, make sure that you are tuned in tomorrow morning. We're going to see them waking up and see how they are doing. The other day I actually bumped into them while I was on foot when we were tracking the cheetahs, and they were looking pretty good. Didn't spend too much time with them though. But yeah, guys, like I said, great to have had you with us on the drive. Can't wait to have you there tomorrow morning as well. We are at that point we're going to have to say good night. Okay, see you all tomorrow morning. Ciao, ciao.